it was such a unique style and such a unique vibe with almost these kind of rock and roll grooves thrown into black metal. I think Candlelight Records, they screwed the pooch a little as far as promoting this album is concerned, because I don't feel like it was under enough people's attention for a long enough period.
Yeah, I mean, the name sounds vaguely familiar, but I think it was one of those ones where I watched the episode, probably was like, yeah, it sounds pretty good, and then just never listened to the album. Never thought about the band again until you sang their name again. So, I mean, do they write songs about like communist shit, or is it just that's just like how they are? This album is consistently from the beginning to end has this type of dark atmosphere and raw kind of quality to it that I think was missing from this album. They kind of still have the raw edges, like you can feel like, I don't know, it reminds me more of when I've seen them live, I guess.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 302 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I'm continuing my countdown of the very best albums of the last 12 months, and for that, I am joined by my very good friend and fellow horseman of the podcasting apocalypse, the sinister minister himself, Karl Hikara, host of Sol Nox, which you can check out every Thursday and every Sunday. He will be sharing with you his top 10 albums of 2025. I will be counting down my numbers 20 to 11. But before we get to that, we need to rev up the old engines with a musical interlude. I'm not even going to announce the track. This is a song that all of you should know, and it sounds a little something like this. You just heard Azrael by Trivax off their fantastic album Eloah Burns Out, a song most of you should be familiar with. And usually I kick off every episode with some unsanctioned filth, maybe a premiere on the Sphere. But this week I chose to make an exception and play that track because at the time that I'm recording this, Trivax are 476 views away from passing 1 million on YouTube for the music video to Azrael, which I think for a band from the underground with the sort of humble beginnings that Trivax has is absolutely extraordinary, and I wanted to take a moment to celebrate that and to congratulate Cheyenne and the gang. Also, I want to say thank you very much to every member of the Legion, because we put out a call on our socials last week to try and narrow the gap. I think at the beginning of last week, the gap was about 2,000. And in just a few days, we upped that by about 1,500. So well done. Thank you very, very much to all of you. And, again, congratulations to Trivax. An incredible achievement by a band who I think is one of the most important voices in extreme music today. And they may be appearing on my top 30 of 2025 countdown. Quite where they will land, you'll just have to listen and find out. Speaking of listening, if you are new to the podcast, you may not be aware of this, but I'm going to remind you, I am a card-carrying member of what some have referred to as the Cosa Nostra of podcasting, the Horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, coming your way with the very best in high-quality content from Monday to Sunday. On a Monday, we've got Horrorwolf 666, and that is brought to you by Brandon Legion. Yours truly, Old Jackson, casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere every Tuesday. And a reminder that if you are in an unsigned band and you want me to check out your stuff, head to intothenecrosphere.com. You can drop me a line on the contact form over there. You can also use that contact form to submit questions for the weekly news rant. And starting as of last week, I will now have an ongoing run of episode playlists on there. So whatever you hear Karl and I talk about, in case you missed something or in case you want to check out a band that maybe you're not familiar with, head over there. The episode playlist will be on and ready for you to check out. Once again, massive thank you to Santelia for the great job that she did with designing the website, and we're gonna do a lot more to develop that and evolve it over the coming months and over the coming years. So you just make that, you bookmark that as one of your favorites and make sure you visit it every single day. On a Wednesday, we have Mike Hill from the band Tombs and his long-running podcast, Everything Went Black. Mike will be my guest next week as we wrap up the best of 2025 countdown, so don't miss that. Also on a Wednesday, we've got Cheyenne from the band Trivax with his podcast, Iblis Manifestations. We also have on a Thursday a returning Mike Hill alongside his co-hosts, the Sheriff Mike Scondado and the Professor Jeff Kashid. Necromaniacs is the name of their show, one of my very favorites of the week, one I never miss, one you should never miss either. And then, of course, I mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but we've got Karl Hikara, the Sinister Minister, with Sol Nox coming your way every Thursday and every Sunday. He takes you on a curated tour through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric. And if you missed the previous installments of his countdown, I think he does a top 50 countdown. You can check out the prior episodes of Sol Nox. I think he had Shograth, Drugoth, and somebody else. The name escapes me on as his guests, counting down his favorite music of the last 12 months. And he's a man with impeccable taste, which is why I've asked him on the show. A reminder as well that if once myself and Karl are done talking, don't go anywhere, because it is time for the weekly news rant. And in addition to the traditional Swirly of the week, I'm also going to be listening to new music by Witch Ripper, Saasta, Triumpher, Exodus, Monstrosity, Uada, and then, of course, the one that all of you have been asking me about, the new Megadeth, the final Megadeth album, and the one that everybody in particular has been keen on hearing me talk about is that Metallica cover, Ride the Lightning. I'm going to be listening to that, and I'm going to be rounding it up for the ultimate judgment, some might say. So that's coming up later on in the show. First up, though, I am tremendously pleased to welcome back to Into the Necrosphere my very good friend, my fellow horseman of the podcasting apocalypse, the Sinister Minister, Karl Hikara. All right, my friend, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
How has your year gotten started? I'm not going to wish you a happy new year because we're well outside that window.
Yeah, I
But
think
I hope
we've done that
2026
already.
has got I hope 2026 has gotten off to a good start for you though.
Yeah, it's been okay. Been pretty productive. I had to have a art show next month that I had to paint a bunch of paintings for, and Drew Goth and I are working on the new Black Flame Altar album, or the first Black Flame Altar album, and we're almost done demoing everything out. So probably next week we're gonna get started. Once he does new versions of all the drums, like the final versions, then I'm gonna be starting to get on recording that. So probably
That's
we'll
very
be done with
exciting.
that by the end of February. By the rate we're going right now, so
The art exhibition that you're doing, that's a first for you for at least for a while.
yeah, the last one I did was in 2024. Yeah, so it's been 2 years since the last one I did.
And where is that going to be held?
It's just at a it's like a I guess it's like a coffee shop cafe on downtown Denver called Sputnik. It's down on South Broadway here, and me and my friend Jack Jensen are doing a show. I pretty much generally just show with Jack for the most part, but ever since he used to own this place called Mutiny now across the street basically from where Sputnik is, and back in like 2008 was the first, or 2007 was the first time I ever showed my art, and that was at Mutiny now. And so so it's just 10 pieces. We both did 10 and put them up, and I would kind of I was trying to do it during peak. Had to get them done by a certain point though, because they need to dry because I paint in oil, so it takes at least 2 weeks to dry. So I had a cut off. I was like, I have to get these done.
Now, is Sputnik is that a coffee shop for respectable folk, or are you still in the you still catering to the misfits crowd?
It's like it's right next to like a venue called the High Dive, which is I guess it started off as kind of like a hipster place, you know what I mean? So it's more, it's okay. It's a pretty nice little place. Like it's not necessarily my crowd 100%, but it's it's a place. It's they are cool, and work with Jack. He's worked with them a bunch for doing shows. So because he doesn't usually show too much. He was doing galleries for a while, but usually he just likes to show in places that people go to, right, instead of just the gallery. So that's kind of what we do. But
Awesome.
yeah, so it's like definitely like a place that it's like, I guess you could still call it kind of hipstery, but it's just like downtown next to a venue. People go in after shows and stuff like that and get drinks as well. So it's kind of a bar and restaurant cafe combined together.
Next up, High Society, and Karl Hikara is walking around wearing a tuxedo, drinking Dom Perignon from a crystal glass.
Yeah. One day art selling like $1 million or something. All right. Yeah. All right.
Well, you need to push them on saying that you're a card carrying member of the Horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. It's like that adds at least a 60% premium to your art pieces.
Yeah, it's a big money in the world.
Yeah, of course. All right. We're going to be talking about here's how we're going to do it. We will do my numbers 20 through to 11 in the first half. Then we're going to have a little musical interlude, and then it's on to the main event, Karl Hikara's top 10. If we just very quickly give folks a reminder of my 30 to 21, just to bring you up to speed, that I shared last week with Nathan from Gravier. At number 30, I had 1914 with Veribus Unitus. At number 29, I had Black Braid with Black Braid 3. At number 28, I had This Gift is a Curse with Air. 27 was Internal Bleeding with Settle All Scores. 26, Phobocosm, Gateway. 25, Glorious Depravity, Death Never Sleeps. In my opinion, one of the most unheralded death metal albums, death metal gems of 2025. Cryptopsy and Insatiable Violence at number 24. Number 23, Despised Icon, Shadow Work. At number 22, Goldsveard, Braiding the Stories. At number 21, Jade, Mysteries of a Flowery Dream. And then we launch into number 20 this week. And my number 20 is Krigsgrav, Stormcaller, released by Willowtip Records on September the 19th. Were you familiar with this record?
Yeah, I had it in my 2025 playlist. I listened to it a few times, but it didn't end up making my list just because I didn't listen to it like a huge amount. Like it wasn't the contenders list, you know what I mean? Like it did go into from the 2025 just everything to the contenders list, but then I just didn't listen to it enough compared to the other stuff I have on my list. So, but it's a great album. I think they did I think it's their best so far. So
I agree. So Fires in the Fall, their previous album that they put out in 2023. That was one that made it into my honorable mentions. I remember, and if I'm remembering correctly, Mike had it in his top 10. I thought that was a good album, but I felt like from the moment that I heard Stormcaller, my first impression was that they had clearly taken a lot of confidence away from the response to Fires in the Fall, and that really was showing in Stormcaller. Stormcaller from the get-go, to me, is a more assured record. It's an album where you can hear the band are kind of really hitting their stride and enjoying what they're doing. And then I think another thing massively to their credit on this record, and I don't know whether this is driven by Justin Coleman, who's the front man and the guitarist, or where in the band it's coming from. I know Justin is a big fan of Typo Negative and of Paradise Lost, and I feel like some of those influences, not overtly but subtly, are starting to make their way into the music. And I think Krigsgrav benefits tremendously from it. And if I were in a managerial position giving them any sort of advice, I would say lean into that a lot more for future releases.
Yeah, that was probably the part that I liked the most about it was the kind of melodic lead guitar parts that they're putting that kind of reminded me of Catatonia, Brave Murder Day, and like you said, Paradise Lost, like maybe even Old Swallow the Sun, and that kind of thing. It had these cool like melodic lead parts mixed in, which I think was really cool. I really like that aspect of the album.
I think probably the standout track on the album in that respect is the second to last song, Ghosts, which definitely has some of those Paradise Lost and early Catatonia vibes to it. And that to me is where the band, like just everything in the band in 2025 really, really comes together, and to me cemented the fact that they needed to be on my list. And like I've said before, a lot of calibration went into this. So I was listening to through the albums back to back, and then I did something that I haven't done before, but which I found actually was quite useful this year, which is to literally just put my playlist on shuffle and just have different songs by different bands playing.
Right.
And that kind of I think it's easier to compare things back to back, because you're just getting like short bursts of it. But inevitably, Krigsgrav ended up at number 20, and congratulations to those guys. Justin has been on the podcast before. He's a great guy. The band is, a fantastic group of dudes. And I'm just very glad to see that they put out an album that broadly speaking, seems to have found a lot of very eager and willing ears.
I would imagine that a lot of them found them through you, because that's how I even know who they are, is because of Necrosphere. So.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. All right. Well, the next band at number 19, I know for an absolute fact a lot of people have found through Into the Necrosphere. I've championed this band since 2021, I think. And it was actually Kelly from Kelly T Reviews, Matt Prizzo's other half, who first brought them to my attention. Drugoth, one of your a close associate of both of ours as well. At number 19, the album The Indomitable Spirit of Merciless Vengeance. Now, I will confess, when I first heard it, when I first heard the first track that he wanted me to premiere, I was saying to myself, where's the grooves here? Because the one thing that I really loved about Battles May Cease but War Is Forever was it was such a unique style and such a unique vibe, with almost these kind of rock and roll grooves thrown into black metal, but black metal Drugoth style. So you couldn't describe it as a typical black and roll band or black and roll project. But Battles May Cease, but War is Forever just worked. I love that record still to this day. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The Indomitable Spirit of Merciless Vengeance does a huge swerve, and then takes you down. Basically, as I described it to him when I gave him my feedback on the record, it's kind of Drugoth's Panzer Division Marduk.
Yeah.
It's unrelenting from start to finish. It is 10 songs over 36 minutes. It doesn't slow down really for anything. I don't think there's a single break on the album, whereas obviously Battles May Cease was punctuated by breaks on virtually every single track. Here it's just, foot to the floor, craziness, chaos, and aggression from start to finish until the final song, as you say. Yeah. It's an album that when you listen to the whole thing from start to finish, everything kind of locks into place and makes sense. I think after I got over my first shock and I did that properly, I was like, this is he's one of those guys where really I think he's got so much musical talent that no matter what direction he goes down, it's going to be interesting either way.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Drugoth later. So.
All right. Okay. Well, then we move on to number 18, Abduction, Existentialismus. That was an early release last year, February 21st. Came out on Candlelight Records. And, again, a band that I have loved really for... the vast majority of Abduction's existence. AV from Abduction was one of the first guests that I ever had on the podcast, and that was around. That was in 2019 when All Pain as Penance came out, which is an album I still think is fucking fantastic. And if you haven't heard it for a while, strongly suggest you go back and listen to it. And I feel like as songwriters or as a band, they've just gotten better. Black Blood, that came out back in 2022, phenomenal album. And then Existentialismus comes out, and I was like, I'm not sure they could top Black Blood. And they went ahead and they completely mopped the floor with it, including putting in a song like Razors of Occam at number 5, which, as AV explained when he was on the podcast, is this incredibly emotional, I hate to use the word, but vulnerable sounding black metal song that is dedicated to, his grandparents, but is so unbelievably good and fits in so well with the rest of the record. And then obviously at Fortress last year, I had the pleasure of seeing them do the entire album from start to finish. And live, every single one of these songs just comes alive in a way you wouldn't expect. Fucking incredible record. I think Candlelight Records, they screwed the pooch a little as far as promoting this album is concerned, because I don't feel like it was under enough people's attention for a long enough period. But, I feel like alongside Trivax and, a couple of others, Abduction, and I've said this for the last several years now, to me they are at the sharp end of the spear of the UK black metal scene. Both recorded and live.
Yeah, Abduction's one of those bands that I know about because of Necrosphere. Actually, so I think I found Necrosphere in 2020, and I went back and watched all your old episodes. Was it 2020? It was 2020 when you got Ghoul, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because that was the first episode I watched.
It was like I think I spoke to him in May or June of 2020.
Yeah, it was
right after they had to cancel. Right after Mayhem had to cancel their tour because of COVID.
Yeah. So yeah, it was around when. So it would have been that summer. Around then was when I found that podcast, and I found it because I was searching for Mayhem interviews, and yours popped up with Ghoul. I was like, "Oh, sick! It's cool to you talk to him." So, I went back and listened to all those. So I think Abduction is like episode 2 or 3, right? So
yeah. Well, I think it might have been episode 4 that I had him on, but it was
early.
One of the very early ones.
The I haven't watched any of those old episodes in a while, but it'd be weird to see like your old formats and stuff.
It is weird. Well, when I did episode 300, I did the intros at the beginning of like episode 1, episode 100, episode 200. It's actually when you hold them back to back like that, it's pretty crazy to see how the show has changed. You don't realize it when you're sort of in the thick of things.
Yeah.
But the show has definitely evolved. So I would personally not want to go back and watch any of those old episodes again. But
Yeah.
that's just me. I still have people that reach out to me and they're like, "Yeah, I just discovered the podcast," and they'll be on like episode 280, and I've gone back and I'm listening through. I've started everything from the beginning and working my way through every single episode. I'm like, yeah, some of those episodes I would suggest you probably give a skip.
But anyways, so Duction, I'll be quite honest, it's not a band that I've really gotten super into. But I've followed their career, through the podcast basically, and giving the albums a listen. And out of all of them, I think this is probably their best one. Even though it's not one that I listen to a ton. Like I'm not necessarily, I'm not sure if I can call myself an Abduction fan or not, but it's I do think this is one of the better ones they've done. So
yeah, I think if you saw them live, you might develop a different perspective about them. I mean, live they really are a tremendous band, and I know you and I are both the same in this regard when it comes to black metal. There's a lot of black metal that live to me is just so dull and so pointless.
Yeah.
I don't understand how people can derive any pleasure from seeing many of these bands play on stage. But there's so much energy and so much. There's just particularly Phil AV. He just has this presence on stage, and he really has evolved and developed as an artist and as a frontman. Since those heady days of the first interview. I remember obviously in the first interview he was there with his mask. He was quite shy, and this is why I said to him last year when I had him on the show again. I was like, I've seen him mature. And it's been incredible to see, and seeing them at Fortress, I kind of felt like it was a culmination of a lot of that.
Yeah,
but
I definitely think it's better that he has a band now, and
yes,
he's including them in the recording and everything. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah,
really elevates the band a lot. Like the last album and this new one have definitely been on a whole nother level. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's a very strong band as well. It's one thing to get a band of fucking nerds that are standing beside you, but he's got some really capable musicians in the band with him, which I also think make a difference. So anyway, there you go. Number 18. Now, last week the question was raised whether I would ever have a RABM band on the podcast. And I said yes, and everyone knows the answer to that question. And then I realized, as I was revisiting my top 30 of 2025, I actually have had one on the podcast, and it turns out they were pretty cool dudes. They are at number 17 of my best of albums of last year, Terje de Horde, and the album Our Breath Is Not Ours Alone. That was released on Church Road Records on October the 10th, 2025. Felt like it flew a little under the radar, but that could be the circles that I move around in. Just, not interested in listening to a bunch of communists do black metal.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, like I said, when I had them on the show, they were good dudes. I actually really enjoyed that conversation. I thought that was a good episode. And this album... There were a few records this year, and I'm going to get to one again later on this list, where when I first saw they were being released, I was quite indifferent to them, and I was just like, for reasons I can't quite wrap my head around, because
right.
I really liked the last Terje de Horde album. In one of these, I Am Your Enemy, and that came out in 2022. So, but when this one came out, I was just kind of like, oh, well, who gives a fuck? And I was focused on other things.
Yeah.
And then just randomly one day, I switched it on and I was like, I just want to hear what they've gotten up to on this album. And I was like, holy fuck. It improves on the previous record in every way. It is super aggressive, incredibly riff heavy, very catchy. Every performance is completely and utterly on point. I think vocals in particular sound so pissed off and so aggressive. It just works. Like every song just works. What I also love about this record is that unlike in one of these, I'm Your Enemy, which kind of is just one, it almost feels like just this singular blast of mayhem that hits you. This record, every song is still, relentless, aggressive, and consistently violent. But every song also sounds very self-contained. So you can, you never feel like you're getting lost in the album. You kind of know exactly where you are. But holy shit, every single song is a fucking masterpiece, a home run. So for those that think that I hate on RABM, no, I do not. When they make good music, they make good music. And whilst we may differ politically on many things, the one thing that Terje de Horde has in common with me is, we both love us a good riff, and these guys certainly know how to write one.
So they're RABM?
They are apparently, yeah. I actually verified this because I thought about this the other day. I was like, are they RABM? And according to ChatGPT, yes, they are.
Well,
are you now removing them from your list?
No, I've actually never even listened to this band. I mean, maybe I heard a song that you played on the podcast, but outside of that, yeah. I can't say them even. I mean, I know I watched the episode that you probably did with them, and I have no memory of it. So to be quite, I mean, how long ago was that? Like 20? Was it like 3 years ago?
It would have been longer than that, like probably 4 years ago.
Yeah,
it would have been 4 years ago because it was around the time of the previous record being released. It was actually Evan that turned me on to them.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the name sounds vaguely familiar, but I think it was one of those ones where I watched the episode. Probably was like, yeah, it sounds pretty good, and then just never listened to the album. Never thought about the band again until you sang their name again. So, I can't say I'm familiar. I mean, do they write songs about like communist shit, or is it just that's just like how they are?
No,
just their politics.
In fairness, I haven't actually read the lyrics, but I don't necessarily think it's about commie stuff.
Like it's not like Dawn Raid or something. It's just they happen to be politically that way.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just grab a random lyric here. Second song off the new album, the song entitled "Raise Them Towards the Sun." Do we dare to burn our precious effigies of self into a collective conscience, our trembling masks of inherited strength? Collective conscience sounds a little commie to me, but nevertheless, it doesn't really matter. You can fucking sing whatever you want. So you can sing Mao is by Euro on these songs, and it would still sound cool, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's what generally, I don't really. My attitude is, unless they make it my problem, I don't care what somebody's politics are in a band. You know what I mean? On either side, it doesn't matter to me at all. And unless you're like writing like I don't know, something that's just like a political screed that's basically just propaganda dressed up as music. So to me, at that point, it doesn't have any real artistic value, right? So, but if you're like writing, your music is supposed to be expressing something, and you happen to have political beliefs, and that maybe that might show through at times, but whatever. Like, I guess that's my opinion about it. Like, I don't really care unless somebody's like just basically making propaganda masked as music. You know what I mean?
Now, I want to actually take a quick. I want to do a sidebar very quickly before we move on to the next one, because you mentioned the word propaganda. And Dissection very famously said that their music is propaganda for the MLO. You and I both read Far Beyond All Light, The Life, Death, and Legacy of John Notveit and Dissection. And I thought our thoughts on the book were quite similar.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like it's definitely a disappointment,
Yeah.
I was hoping for something. I don't know. I don't know what I was hoping for, but I didn't really get it from the book.
I felt like it was 240 pages of a guy fawning over Jon. It would be like he went between fawning over Jon and basing all of his research on setlists.com and like seeing where the band played, what they played, and who they played with. It was like there are like vast parts of the book that is literally just, in this year, Dissection played these 5 shows. They played with this band,
Yeah.
performed a cover of, Elizabeth Bathory, along with a cover of Bathory's Sacrifice.
And
So you never really,
and
like,
then
what I
like
wanted was something that gave me more of a sense of who the man was. And I never really got that from the book. And then what I found most egregious, and I mentioned this in the news rant last week, was the fact that towards the end of the book, he basically tries to justify the homicide that landed Jon in jail by saying that, yeah, well, he was a Satanist, so everyone. I don't really consider it a crime, which he literally says in those exact words. I don't consider it a crime. And everyone should have expected it because of his beliefs.
right. It's yeah, stuff like that. And then it's I think that the structure of the book is very poor, like
Yes.
the way that it's laid out. And I think the biggest, like, one of the most disappointing part is like, okay, I guess I was more interested in like just the history of, like, and more of the musical side of stuff. Like, like I was hoping that we're gonna get, maybe this guy did some interviews with people and talked about like the recording process for the Somber Lane and Storm of the Light Spain and the Priest of Satan album and stuff like that. And most of that stuff he just kind of glosses over within like a paragraph or something. You know what I mean? Like the Storm of the Light Spain recording is basically skipped over, and then he starts talking about all these live shows they played. You know what I mean? Like, it's like really weird. And like I said, the structure is bizarre. Like, it starts off with the rebirth, sort of goes back to the beginning, comes back around to the crime and stuff, and then goes back to the rebirth era, and then talks about like does a kind of like poor section about the MLO and the beliefs that they have, which is not that well written in my opinion. And yeah, and for most part, just seems like a fanboy for Jon, and the whole book's basically kind of it's kind of used. It's kind of in my opinion, is definitely in the kind of canonization of Jon that's gone on in certain part of the black metal scene that I find is just like bizarre. You know what I mean? Like, they literally, there's a lot of people out there, and if people listening to this probably right now who probably feel this way, who kind of hero worship him. You know what I mean? There's a lot of hero worship of him, and I don't really understand why. Like, he's a dude who made two good albums and one album that some people think is great and others like us don't really like very much. And then there's wasted like a huge amount of his time in prison for getting involved in a stupid crime because he's a quote unquote Satanist, in that sense of like that's what you're supposed to do, is be like evil or whatever, which is like,
be a criminal. Yeah.
which makes sense when you're like 17, I guess, or 18 or however. He was like what, like 19 when it happened, like 20, like not very old. So like, it's same thing with like Bard, but I think Bard figured out that, yeah, it's kind of stupid, but Jon kind of just like went deeper into that whole like perspective, because I don't know, as a Satanist myself, I just don't think that you need to be a fucking criminal. In fact, I think the opposite. I think if you want to have like excellence in the world, you should be the opposite. Like, you don't need to be a criminal to have excellence, you know what I mean, and to follow your own rules in life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look at, and there's plenty of guys in that scene who didn't become criminals. Like, look at the guys in Watain, but like, they probably got up some shady shit at some points, but they didn't like go murder people and go into jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and as I said, I thought that actually trying to justify the crime as the author, I thought was completely ridiculous. It's like writing a book about Charles Manson and saying, actually, I thought he was quite a cool dude. I mean, it's not quite as, obviously the crime isn't quite as egregious as what Charles Manson was responsible for, but it's just stupid. And the way that he describes the MLO, that also sounds fucking idiotic to me. The whole concept, to be quite frank, sounded completely and utterly idiotic to me. So I like the way that you describe it as canonization. To me, it's just a sad story. It's a guy that had a extraordinary amount of talent, probably one of the most, musically talented players from that era.
Yeah.
That just got involved in a lot of dumb shit that ruined his life.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
all.
a very
That's what I
sad
think.
story
Yeah.
to me as a result.
I think that it's really sad because he was basically a guitar virtuoso. I mean, he was like he is. That's one thing I always say is he was like one of the riffs on like Storm of the Lightsbane and stuff like that. I mean, are really on the next level of writing and composition and everything. And what I just feel like I think that the metal world, it would have been this way better if instead of going to jail, and spending all that time in jail, he could have like actually continued dissection in the late 90s. And like I don't know, I just always felt like it was like kind of a waste. And then
agree.
And then yeah, he made a choice to take himself out of his life. And like I always say is that I can respect his intensity and his devotion, even if I think that it's kind of a stupid, to be honest, a lot of it's kind of stupid. Like I can respect the intensity, you know what I mean? Like I can respect the fact that he like I always say that kind of style of Satanism, like the kind of anti-cosmic MLO, Temple of Blacklight, like ultimately the idea is like this kind of Gnostic idea of like being against, like seeing this reality as a prison created by like this, false god creator and stuff like that. And like they want to like unite back with like the chaos, right? And a certain aspect of that belief system, the ultimate, I mean, essentially, like if you really take it seriously, the ultimate answer is suicide. And he's one of the few people who actually, he's one of those guys who did it, so like he went all the way with this.
The thing that I kept thinking to myself as I was reading about it, and again, obviously my knowledge is based on everything that's in the book, is I just kept thinking, anything that you pursue in life, whether it's doing martial arts or doing art, doing an art, or fucking going to the gym, everything has to benefit you in some way. Otherwise, it really is just misspent time. And all I could think about with any time that they described in the book anything to do with the MLO, is I just kept thinking to myself, what on earth benefit did he derive from this belief system? Or does anybody derive from this belief system? To think that, at the age of, and he got into this nonsense when he was in his 20s, to believe, as you say, that, they want to be reunited with the chaos and stuff like that. For what?
I don't know.
What's the point?
It's a good question. I have no idea.
Does it make you does it make you a more successful human being? No. Does it make you a happier human being? No. If you, and perhaps happiness isn't cult either. But I mean, it's fucking idiotic. And maybe that's because it flies in directly in the face of the belief that I have, which is, we don't know what's coming. You got one life. Make sure you fucking, use every single day to its full. Because otherwise, you're going to end up being 70 years old, and you're going to go, where the fuck did all of that time go?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, it's a profoundly negative point of view, and that's why it is the exact opposite. Because it's an idea that you're like constrained in a flesh prison, basically, and life is just nothing but suffering and horror, essentially. Because so, it's that kind of Gnostic. It's very negative. So, I don't think the purpose is to make your life better. It's just to, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
To accelerate the end.
Yeah, because I've never been. I guess it is like it's like a desire for non-existence. It's like somebody who so profoundly hates existence that they want non-existence. And so, and that is a point of view. There are people, and it is a part of some aspects of the black metal world, and I can find some of that like inspiring lyrically, like in the music, but like as far as my personal viewpoint in life, it's like very the opposite. I'm very much like a person who wants to strive to, in life, as much as possible to, make yourself more and do more and achieve the things you want to achieve. And, to me, that's a very satanic point of view as well, but in a more positive point of view, I guess you could say. But that's my kind of ethos. I guess it's also a bit more heathen. It's just like, you live your life. I always think of like Conan the Barbarian Crom gives you what you have, and then you gotta make the best of your life, That's kind of my point of view.
Well, I mean, we could go into that conversation for hours. I mean, I've got so many things that I want to talk to you about in that regard, but let's focus on the music, and we segue into number 16 on my list. Who knows what this man believes, but he has crafted one hell of an album. Swirly with Vortex of the Destroyer. That came out on one of my favorite record labels and one of the most consistent record labels, Norma Evangelium Diaboli, that was released a day after my birthday, March the 28th. The sequel to Requiem that came out in 2020. And initially I was like, I don't know whether this is going to top Requiem. But the more I listened to it, the more I just realized, holy fuck, he has put together something exceptional with this album. It is as dark and aggressive as you would imagine Swirly to sound, or as it should sound. But I kind of feel like he's dialed up the intensity on basically just about everything, starting with his vocals. I mean, he sounds completely unhinged on every single song. The riffs, I believe, sound and feel even more prominent. There's a brooding, really dark atmosphere that kind of works its way through every single song. And even though the album is 55 minutes, it never feels it. It is from start to finish just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, this man came up later, so we'll hold off.
All right. Park that one. Move to number 15. So I'm curious as to how much overlap there might be. But number 15... we've got Memberus with Black Plasma Armor. That was out on the 21st of January, released by World Terror Committee. Discovered this album purely because I went on Metal Archives one day and I said, I wonder what World Terror Committee has put out this year. And I spotted this record and I was like, fuck, I haven't heard this yet.
Yeah.
Went straight into it and god damn it, is it fucking excellent. If you have been missing bands that pay tribute to the second wave of Norwegian black metal with a 2025 twist, or that do it, let's say that pay tribute to it, and do it properly, and do it with a 2025 with a modern twist, then Memberus is the band for you. They have been going for a while now. This is their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is their 6th album. Misanthropy or whatever it was previously called, the album that came out in 2020. I went back and checked that out too. Also excellent. And by the way, these guys are not from Norway, they're from Germany. But fucking hell, Black Plasma Armor, really, really solid tier 1 second wave inspired black metal. Just executed to an absolute turn. Not a missed note, not a missed moment on the record. Fantastic use of atmosphere. Just a really, really solid, spectacular black metal album.
Yeah, it's a really good one. That's how I found it too, is because I looked at, I think it's one of the only albums World Terror Committee put out last year, actually. The year before, they were very busy. I had a lot from them, but last year, I think they only had like 2 albums that they put out. So,
yeah, they put out, I think, Sargeist, and Sargeist. They put out an EP by Disengelium. Actually, they put out Barshaketh as well.
Okay.
Barshaketh, I know a lot of people really loved. I liked it, but that's probably one for the honorable mentions, just to give you a spoiler on what the rest of my list is going to look like. Sargeist made neither honorable mention nor my top 30. I thought that was a bitterly disappointing album, but Memberus,
it's not a good
fantastic.
One. Yeah, Barshaketh was number 45 on my list. But Memberus was on my list for a while, but then it became an honorable mention just because I didn't spend as much time with it as some other albums. But it's definitely a really, really sick album. Like just the production, the riffing, the atmosphere. It's got such a really pitch black atmosphere that I really liked on it. It's a sick one.
Did Sargeist make your list at all?
No, I didn't like that album.
About to say the number 145.
I couldn't even get through that album because I think the vocals are like awful. Like having Shot Rag do vocals is like the worst thing that could happen to Sargeist because he's like a horrible vocalist. Sorry, like with all due respect, like I think he's a genius for writing music. Like I love Horna, I love Sargeist before this album, but the previous project that he did vocals for called Mortualia, it's like unlistenable because his vocals are that bad. And this album's not that bad. Like the vocals are like not like super offensive per se, but they're not very good either. Compared to like the guy from Desolate Shrine who's in the band for like I thought Unbound and Death Generation, the last album and EP, was like some of the best Sargeist ever. Like I thought it was so good. And like the last one of Torog, the Feeding Crawling Shadows, like that was such an incredible album as well. It's probably my favorite Sargeist album. And so they had this album did not reach up to that. And unfortunately, I thought the riffing was a little bit boring on it, and I didn't think I thought the vocals were just, they weren't necessarily as offensive as some of his vocals were, but he's still not like a good vocalist in my opinion.
It just feels to me like a very tepid record. That's what I thought when I heard it. I was like, there's nothing about this that feels abrasive. There's nothing that's kind of harsh in your face. A lot of the vehemence of earlier Sargeist is just missing. There's just nothing to it. It's not an album that has any sort of impact, I feel.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's very tepid. That's a good way to put it. It's very middle of the road. It'd be like a 5 out of 10 for me. Like it just was like forgettable almost. You know what I mean? So, which was very unfortunate. I was hoping, if it was if the guy from here's the thing, if the guy from Desolate Shrine was the band, I would have been a lot more excited. But when I knew Shot Rag was doing vocals for it, I kind of lost interest immediately because I was like, that's how bad. I don't know if have you ever heard Mortualia, his project they did vocals on?
No.
It's worth just listening to hear how horrible they are because they are comically bad. So I mean, I bought that album back in like 2005. I was like, oh, cool, another project from Shot Rag, because I was a big fan of Horna and old Sargeist and at the time. And I bought the CD and then I got it. And I was like, what? It's like the riffs are really good, but oh my god. Sounds like he's strangling a cat or something.
The rest of this is just total dog shit.
Yeah.
Now, one band that definitely doesn't lack in impact is my number 14, Prescription. Desolate Divine came out on Dark Descent Records on August the 29th. Finnish band, in my view, when it comes to blackened death metal, like these guys really punctuate the blackened part with the death metal. It is fucking aggressive, seriously intense. Once again, the sort of band where you hear them and you go to people like Nurgle from Behemoth who say nothing good is coming out right now. You go, well, if nothing good is coming out right now, why does your music not match up to this standard or this is a benchmark? I know a lot of people really like this as well, but yeah, fucking fantastic. If you're after a record of just darkened, blackened intensity, you're going to have to go a long way to hear something better than this, or you would have had to go a long way to hear something better than this in 2025.
Yeah, this was 17 on my list, and it is actually the highest death metal album on my list. So, so that's a spoiler. There's no death metal in my top 10, but or even above 17. So, but I think that so for me, it was my favorite death metal album last year. I think that I really, really loved the previous Prescription album a lot. Like I thought it was great. It came out in 2020. I believe it was 2021.
Conduit, by the way.
Yeah, Conduit. And this album I think is even better. I think the production's a bit rougher on this one because it's very, but it's still Dave Otero, so it's still like, super, it's polished, but it's a bit more polished in an Auclise way where has this kind of rougher edge to it. So, And yeah, riffing is sick. The atmosphere, the whole thing is just like just something really just that does it for me. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, no, I thought it was fantastic. It's interesting that you bring up Eccles, because I feel like I thought to myself when I heard the record for the first time, I was like, yeah, these guys would be perfect to take out on the road with
Well,
Eccles.
they're friends, so I think the guys even played in live for Nightbringer and stuff in the past, if I remember correctly.
Mm.
So they and Kyle did lyrics on the previous album actually for it. So and I don't know if he did vocals or not, but I know he did lyrics for it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a close relationship there. So I definitely though, I mean, that would be a perfect combination. I don't even know if Prescription play live, but if they did, it'd be sick to see them with Eccles.
Yeah, agree. Okay, number 13, Enthroned, Ash Spawn, put out by Season of Mist on December the 5th. There's an awful lot of people for whom Enthroned without Lord Sabathon is basically not enthroned, and they write the band off. A lot of people basically wrote them off after Towards the Skull Throne of Satan. I am not one of those people.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
feel like Sovereigns back in 2014, that was a superb album. Cold Black Suns, I loved. It was in my best of list of 2019. And then Ash Spawn, I still feel like in some ways continues in spirit from Cold Black Suns. Nornagast, when I had him on the podcast and I mentioned that, he kind of looked at me like I was out of my mind. But I actually stand by what I said, having gone back and listened to Ash Spawn many, many times now. Some of the almost borderline avant-garde influences, some of the craziness and some of the sort of unexpected twists and turns that you got a lot of on Cold Black Suns. Some of it is definitely still on Ash Spawn. There's no question that the album is more intense and it's more aggressive. But it does take you into unexpected territory. Nornagast's vocals are absolutely superb. He sounds like he's
Oh, there's sick on this album.
yeah. I mean, I would actually
He,
say it's probably one of the best black metal vocal performances of 2025.
yeah,
Um,
and people say that Sabaton is better than him. I just like go, what the fuck are you talking about? And no
yeah,
offense, like I like the first couple of Throne albums for what they are, but Sabaton was a pretty bad vocalist compared to Norma
totally
Gas.
agree.
You know what I mean? Like it's just like objective reality.
Yeah. Thing is, I just really like the direction that Nornagast has taken the band down.
Me too. I
They've
think
been
it's way
around.
better.
They've been around now for a very long time. Started in 1993, and in 2025 are still able to make music that sounds relevant, that's interesting, that you don't 100% expect. What they or you're not 100% certain what they're going to do. That first single that they put out off this record, for example, that Ravia Salmon, that's a great example. That's a great example. You have that like droning singing at the beginning with the blasting, and then it goes into other directions. Yeah, I think it's a unique sounding album, and it's an album that still sounds to me like the band give a shit and they want to prove something. And after you've been around for that long and you're still able to operate at that level, as as I've said many times before, you're always going to have my respect. So
Yeah.
great record.
Yeah, this was 21 on my list, and I think it could have had potential to go higher. If I had listened to it more, I think. But I Sovereigns is my favorite Enthroned album. Like when that came out, for some reason it hit me at the right time, and I just listened to obsessively that year. But I think that for me personally, I think ever since was it Tetrakarsis was the first one Nornagast did vocals on, and for me that's like they upped their level because for me like I like the first two albums for that early 90s kind of like nostalgia, but I think that like the middle era of their career from like Apocalypse Manifesto to Zest Hereticum is like kind of weak. Like it kind of feels like very much like they're trying to be Marduk or something, you know what I mean? Like, and so when they put out Tetrakarsis, it was like a breath of fresh air for them. Like they're like leveled up in seriousness. Like Nornagast just takes this has a much more serious, because he's actually like serious about the occult and everything. Like you know what I mean? Like it's like real for him. So, but yeah, Sovereigns is still probably my favorite Enthroned album. But I think after I listen to this a bunch more, this might be my second, because I think that I like the way that it kind of combines the experimentation of Cold Black Suns with the ferocity of Sovereigns. You know what I mean? I think that combination has made an album that is definitely a challenger for their best. You know.
Funny you mentioned about it might have been higher had you listened to it more. So I was listening to it last night, and it very nearly moved up 2 to 3 spots on my list, and then I was like, no, fuck it, you can't keep on messing with this list because you'll want to keep doing this until June of next year. So it is one where the more you listen to it, the more you enjoy it.
Yeah, like I didn't get a huge amount of listens on it, and I definitely feel like the more listens I got, maybe it could have, bullied its way even higher. So.
Okay, at number 12, Nexion with Sundrung. Nexion out of Iceland, the follow-up to the fucking fantastic 7 Oracles that they put out in 2020. Sundrung, even more experimental, but I think, on the other hand, even more violent, even more unique sounding. And,
even better.
Yeah, just a record that is... It sort of has that Icelandic... or that unique Icelandic feel to it. Like, I think one of the things I love so much about the Icelandic black metal scene is that all of the bands feel so incredibly unique and do so, such incredibly different things. Like, you've got Altari that basically sounds like if Killing Joke had decided to do a black metal band, that's what they would sound like. Then you've got Nexion that have all these fucking wild, like pagan, heathen influences in the music. Just a total masterpiece. And they had started off strong with 7 Oracles. So when Sundrung first came out, and people were messaging me like, "Have you heard this? Have you heard this?" I checked it out, and you always have that trepidation around. Okay, can a band who put out such a powerful debut, can they top it with their sophomore release? And these guys definitely have succeeded in that regard.
Yep, it was my number 20. So here's an ironic thing: I hadn't thrown a Nexion right next to each other on my list too. 20 and 20. Yeah. I mean, this Nexion album, I think they did top themselves. I really like the direction of going a little more Nordic inspired with the lyrics and the themes, because I really like that combination of this kind of orthodox, kind of third wave-ish style of black metal with like these kind of Nordic, dark heathen themes going on with the lyrics, and some of the music. I think it's just a really cool combination because it's just it's very unique and to me, like, them and Mistherming are currently the best Icelandic bands. They're the ones I like the best that are still active. Like, I mean, I know Sinmara and stuff hasn't split up necessarily, but I mean, they haven't put out an album in a long ass time. Sarti Dorothy's gone. You have like the cool side projects, but like Anvari and stuff. But as far as like a younger, because I think Nexion are younger than all the other guys. Like, I think they're in their 20s, and they're definitely got a long. Hopefully, let's hope they have a nice long career ahead of them because they're definitely killing it so far.
Yeah, agree. All right, and then that brings us to the final number on my list today. And again, I mentioned previously that I had another record that I'd been reasonably indifferent towards when it was first announced. And when I properly discovered it, I was just utterly blown away. That is The Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy by Lamp of Murmur, released on the 14th of November by Wolves of Hades. I enjoyed Saturnian Bloodstorm. I really enjoyed everything that Lamp of Murmur have done, but I kind of liked it for what it was, which was basically just naked immortal worship. And so people would always rate this band very highly. I could see the enjoyment, but I never considered them to be one of the leading lights of the genre, the way some potentially have held them up to be. So again, Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy got announced. I was kind of like, I'll get to it when I get to it. It's probably not even going to make my top 30, so who cares? And then one day, randomly, I switched it on a journey from Newbury into London for work. And it hit the second half of the album, which is kind of this 3-part piece that is tied to the title of the record. It's Moondance, Twilight Orgasm, and The Fall. And all of a sudden, you've got this fucking Sisters of Mercy, Fields of the Nephilim stuff that gets thrown in with the black metal. And I was mesmerized. And I just went back and listened to that part of the album over and over and over again. And then I went back and I listened to the whole thing. And then when you listen to the whole thing and you hear how perfectly everything kind of fits together, I don't know what the hell M from Lamp of Murmur was on when he did this, but he really, really excelled himself. I think he surprised not just me, but a lot of people, and he's put out an album that is streets ahead of anything else that he has released, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was kind of the same thing with you, where total pretty indifferent, you know. Like actually, didn't really. I heard some songs from Saturnian Bloodstorm, but I actually didn't even get around to listening to that until some point this year. And thought it was pretty good, I guess. This is very good. I like it. I think I only listened to it once all the way through, so I can't, you know. But I do think it's better. It's probably the best thing they've done. That's for sure. Still don't quite understand everybody filleting him all the time, but I mean, I still think that this is a pretty good album, though. You know?
Yeah. Well, to me, you know, an easy contender for my list. It actually was in the top 10, but then an album that I will reveal next week that also is Icelandic in its roots. Came out on December the 12th, so people can probably put two and two together as to what that might be, and that, you know, that changed things a little bit. But
right,
yeah, I mean, number 11, Lamp of Murmur, The Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy. What a record.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely hit my honorable mentions because I was pretty impressed by it. I need to give it a few more listens though. But yeah,
I know you like yourself a bit of goth music, so I'm surprised that it's not higher up on your list.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily want it mixed with my black metal 100%.
Right, okay, fair enough.
You know, like I'm not opposed to that, but I guess here's my perspective. Like, when you start, I don't know. It depends on what you're doing. You know, I'm not averse to sprinkling that in, and I kind of like the way they did it. So like I said, it's not like I hated it or anything. I think that it hit my honorable mentions, but I didn't necessarily like it enough to like go back and listen to it a bunch. You know what I mean?
All right.
But I think it's cool. I mean, I guess I think when you're adding those kind of influences, there's ways bands do it that I really like, and this one is pretty good one, but just didn't make my list, you know.
My wonderful wife has just brought me a coffee, so
there you go.
I told her she should appear on camera and do a little dance, but she's refused. you mind just taking this away? All right, see you later. All right, well, anyway, whilst you all reflect on Karl's, I would argue, misguided words, we're going to have us a musical interlude before we get to the main event, and we are going to be listening to the second part of the Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy trilogy. This one entitled Twilight Orgasm, which I don't know whether it references having a wank late at night, but either way, the song's fucking badass, so enjoy.
Okay.
All right, that was the Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy Part 2, Twilight Orgasm, taken from the album The Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy, Lamp of Murmur, number 11 on my list. The album was released by Wolves of Hades. Absolutely fucking sensational in my view. And now we get to the real deal, the main event, the top 10 by the Sinister Minister, the Reverend Karl Hikara. Take it away, sir.
All right. Yeah, some top 10. Of course, if you want to hear the rest of the list, you can listen to Sol Nox. So I had 3 episodes. I did one with my friend Sage for the 50 to 31. And then 30 to 21 was with Shawgrath. And then my 20 to 11 was with Drew Goth. So next year, I think I'm going to add do Brandon with an episode as well. So I'll have...
Expanding it to the top 60.
No, it'll be top 50, but I'm going to... The problem was like this year Sage and I did like 50 to 31. So I have space to add another, like split it up to one more episode where it's just 10 for each. So
the first episode I ever did, I think I did the top 20, but I played a song off every single record. Like,
yeah.
Those get a little like, you talk about like the format of my old episodes. There were a few things I did that I felt were a little misguided upon reflection, and I've learned as I've gone on. Well, that's one of them. Having a song between every single one of the top 10 or top 20 that I did.
Yeah, it's too much. Well, my very first top episode when I did for Sol Nox, I did a top 40, and I did the whole thing by myself in one episode. And I was so like by the end, I was like, just like listing the albums basically. I was so tired, so tired of talking. So I knew that I was not going to do that again. But okay, so my number 10 is a probably a band that you're probably not going to like very much, but it's one of my favorite bands. It's Evoken with Mendasium. And why I say that is 'cause I don't think you're a big fan of Funeral Doom, but you might like this album though, because it's like Funeral Doom with there's a lot going on in this album. I think that the previous Evoken album was a bit more in the line of maybe, I guess it was a bit more like melancholic, a little bit more even similar to say Shape of Despair or bands like that. And it was really great. I love that album, listened to the shit out of it. But this album sounds more like a return to the older style. So it's a bit uglier, a bit more aggressive. You have a lot more of the Celtic Frost influence on it. There's actually a part of blast beats, which I don't think Evoken's done for since like their demo maybe. So it's definitely more on the death doom side of things, but it's just it's an amazing album. I mean, it's just it's hard. It's like the whole atmosphere of it, the whole way the songs are written, the whole thing is probably going to go down as like one of their best albums. And part of that's because it's got one of the best productions as well. It's got this really nice production that's like cavernous and raw, but very clear and powerful. I don't know. To me, I think it might go down as one of their, definitely will be one of their best, up there with the classics, The Quietus and Tragedy Eternal and those albums.
So I do like the band, and I did really like this album. I didn't have time to absorb it enough, I think, to be able to give it a fair shake and include it on my list.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of one of my favorite records of all time, Exuvia by the Ruins of Everest. There was just something about the songs, and maybe it was in that cavernous feel, maybe it was in the atmosphere, but it reminded me a little bit of that record, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah. No,
so,
I can see that.
Overall impressions of the album, fantastic. It wasn't one that I returned to, and I suspect, in years to come, I may very well, on a news rant or otherwise, suggest that fucking hell, that was a big miss on my part. That album should have been in the top 10. But yeah, I like it. The time I have spent with it, it was time well spent.
Yeah, it's I don't blame you, because it's a fairly long album. I think it's like what, almost
62 minutes.
Yeah, and it's dense, and it's a dense Funeral Doom album. There's a lot going on, and this, their Funeral Doom album has a lot going on, as opposed to some Funeral Doom where they do like, some Funeral Doom. I'm a big fan of Funeral Doom, but there are some bands that will write long songs that don't have very much going on. Where Evoken have a lot going on in their songs, so it's pretty dense. But you know, they're one of my favorite bands in any genre. So I had the time to sit and listen to it a bunch. You know what I mean, and listen to it while I did stuff. You know, so it's and I'll be getting even more listens with time. So. But I definitely get that. It's like one that you think you have to give more than one or two listens to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's not. It's something that I think you would you only really properly get after the 25th listen.
Yeah. So my number 9 is Clandestine Blaze with Consecration of the Blood. Of course, it's one of those albums you can only listen to if you have the CD or on YouTube. So like, you don't stream his stuff. But I'm a big fan of Clandestine Blaze and have been since the early 2000s when I think the second or third album had come out. I don't know. The third album had been put out. This and Northern Destroyer. And so I followed Clandestine Blaze's career throughout the whole time. I think this album is, I'm not sure if it's better than the last album, but it's definitely another really amazing album from Clandestine Blaze. A lot of great riffing, great atmosphere, and you know, it's Clandestine Blaze though. You know what you're getting. Like he doesn't stray too far out of the formula that he has. You know what I mean?
So this was one that I discovered on the while I was on holiday, and I gave it a couple of listens, liked it, but you know, just probably again never spent enough time with it to properly decide where it might land. Like by the time that I had discovered the record and I was listening to it, I was about 95% of the way done with my list.
Yeah.
And I almost stuck it on. Like I enjoyed the first couple of listens enough to where it was almost on the top 30 list. But again, I was kind of like, by that point, I was like, no.
Yeah. You got to be realistic. Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
With
and
what
you
you
also don't
listen
want to
to.
have recency bias. You know, it's always nice to have a new toy. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the new toy doesn't necessarily mean it's the best toy. But I totally agree with your assessment. Great riffs, great vibe. You know, really raw, really aggressive. Very typical Clandestine Blaze. If you like previous records, you're gonna like this one.
Yeah. If you like Clandestine Blaze, you like this album. I think that, but I think it's a very, you know, he's a pretty perfect Clandestine Blaze album. With that being said, like it's got the everything you'd want. It's got the kind of doomier songs. It's got the kind of blasty songs. And I don't know. He's kind of refined his formula to perfection at this point. You know what I mean? So he can put out as many more albums like in this vein. I'll probably love them all. You know. So my number 8 is Destruction Ritual with Providence. And, this is one of the albums I listened to the most this year, for sure. And I always love this album. It's of course a side project. MKM from Antaeus and Aosof is doing vocals on it. And you have a guy called Terror Rain doing the guitars and keyboards. And it looks like he's a main songwriter. Regardless, I think that for me, this album kind of feels like a continuation of maybe early Aosof. Like it reminds me a lot of like the first Aosof album. It's a bit more second wave and old school, but it's still got like the weird turns that Aosof became more well known for with the later albums. You know what I mean? Obviously put out by Norma Evangelium Diaboli. I think almost every single album that Norma Evangelium Diaboli put out this year is on my list. With maybe like one exception. I think almost everything they put out hit my list. They were probably, them and Territor were pound for pound two of the strongest this year, I think, for labels.
Agree. Yeah. And I was just going to say, can we just take a moment to reflect on what a complete tragedy it is that Aosof split up?
Yeah, it is.
What a band.
Yeah. And of course the guitarist from Aosof is now in Dodeswanger with
who just, by the way, announced a new album.
Yeah. So that I can already tell you that's gonna be on my list for next year. Because Dodeswanger, like I love those albums so much, like both albums they put out. but I'm glad to hear MKM doing something new and something kind of in a similar vein. This album, I think, is inspired by Lovecraft as well. And I you know, it's one of those albums that's hard for me to quite explain what's going on it. You just have to listen to it, but it's for me it's perfection. Like the production, the songwriting, because I love the mix of like old school riffs of kind of like weirder parts, And have you listened this much?
I have, yeah. So this is actually in my honorable mentions, but again, probably because of when I discovered the record, I suspect it may be higher up in 6 months from now. But I am a massive Aosoth fan, as you say, or as you were referring to them earlier, and as we
I love
just
them.
mentioned.
I love Anantaeus and Eosoth.
Yeah, and so I definitely see the parallels between Aosoth and Destruction Ritual. Yeah, superb album.
Yeah. There's something about it that I just kept coming back to all year, like just like since it came out. It came out like October or August, or whenever, I can't remember, but since it came out, it's one of the ones I just kept feeling like this compulsion to keep listening to, So, and it had the potential to be even higher in the list. And then so my number 7 is Hersier, from Sweden. The album is called Hateful Draugr from the Underground, and this is a side project of Domgard, which is a incredible Swedish black metal band that's deserves a lot more respect than they, not respect, but just Domgard are one of those kind of colder bit cult bands that I don't feel like a lot of people know about, but they're put out incredible, like they're part of the kind of dark heathen, a lot of their stuff's like very Thurs oriented, like Arcanum, and Hersier is no exception to that. It's very similar to Domgard. Actually, I remember I was listening to it and I was like, this sounds like Domgard, and I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's because it's got the same guys in it. But it's kind of like, I see why they did this project, because it's kind of like it's more old school. This is like definitely like their tribute to, like, I would say it's like a tribute to 90s black metal in a lot of ways. The production, the songwriting, the keyboard, it's got a lot of keyboard usage. I mean, Domgard uses a lot of keyboards in general, but this feels very like, black metal from 1996, you know what I mean, in like almost every way. And that's part of why I love it so much. But it's like got a lot of variation. So there's like some songs that are more old school, and like even with like first wave riffs, there's songs with like kind of Burzum, like droning sections. Songs are more like symphonic sounding, but it all like ties together in this cohesive whole. And just it just is, for me, this is an incredible album. It's one that I listened to a lot last year. I know I sent this to the Horsemen group chat, but I don't know who listened to it outside of Evan. So did you listen to this band?
I did not know. I was gonna say this was one that it's one of those bands that, as I mentioned to you before, one of the fun parts of doing a top 10 with you is I do always discover new things. This one completely passed me by, and I just noticed now they were on another one of my favorite labels, Darkness Shall Rise. So definitely one I'll check out.
Yeah, you definitely give it a listen. I think you're down for some like good, like really good, well done 90s kind of worship, so like I think there's some other bands that kind of in that vein you've liked before. All right, so my number 6 is one that came up earlier. It is Svartsen with the Vortex of the Destroyer. Svartsen are one of my favorite black metal bands. They're my top bands of all time. And so a new Svartsen album is always like a event for me, and so it's been 5 years since the last one. The last one came out 2020. So and I think this album, I liked Requiem quite a bit. I mean, I like every Svartsen album, but I like this better because this feels more like older Svartsen, if that makes sense. Like Requiem was kind of going in a slightly different direction that was really good.
Yeah.
But I like that this is kind of back more of the production, and the writing style reminds me a lot more of older Svartsen, and I think it actually is. There's a reason for that, is because I think that I saw him make a post that some of the riffs actually date back to like early days of Swartzen. Like he dusted off some like stuff from like the 90s, you know, that he had written that he never used, and along with newer riffs as well. So it's kind of got a little bit of that DNA of the first like 4 albums. So you know what I mean? Like it's that I really like. I like the atmosphere on it. It's got this like evil, almost like cavernous feeling to it, I guess. Like the vocals are absolute, probably his best, one of his best vocal performances across his whole career, I think. I like that use of keyboards, which that comes in here and there on the album, which is not something they haven't really done that too much since like maybe even the True Legend, like their first album. So I just think there's a lot of really cool stuff going on, and I do think that it got overshadowed because I think that Norman Van Jam made a mistake putting this out the exact same day as the new Tate and Blood album. Because I think this album got overshadowed by Tate and Blood, because Tate and Blood are a lot more trendy and popular. You know what I mean? Like everyone was posting about that, and nobody seemed to care that Swartzen album came out, you know, unless you're a fan of them. So, which I thought was unfortunate, because for me, this actually ended up being higher on my list. Like Tate and Blood is number 33 or something. Like I liked it, but this album is, you know, I guess just because Swartzen's like more. As much as I like Tate and Blood, Swartzen's like a better band for me, you know, in my opinion. So I'm going to listen to Swartzen way more. So
I definitely agree with you that it flew under the radar a lot more than it should have. And another thing that I think goes unacclaimed about Swartzen, but will go acclaimed on the podcast. I mean, Ornias is Mr. Consistency, because this is album 11. I don't really, as I'm pouring through the Swartzen discography, maybe with the exception of Wrath Upon the Earth, which I also don't think is a terrible album. But I mean,
I love that album.
He's never released anything that's bad. He's never released anything that I think falls below, in my view, a 7 out of 10.
I would say even higher than that. Like Wrath Upon the Earth for me is an amazing album. I love that album. I think that most of his albums consistently are 8 to 10, you know, 8 to 10 out of 10, depend, you know, like, and I really love his work, and I think he deserves a lot more respect.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Again, I don't think the average casual fan probably doesn't listen to Swartzen, number one, but number two, I don't think a lot of people realize how extraordinarily difficult it is to consistently write. And I mean, he does all the writing, so consistently write 11 great albums.
Yeah, and he has a very unique style of writing. So one thing I love about Swartzen is that he has his like his way of writing songs, and it has all these kind of really interesting, like, I guess like he's one of those guys who, like, if you're like a songwriter or a musician or somebody who can, like, because it's always just like guitar, bass, drums, like very, you know, simple, as far as like the actual like way it is, but what's really cool about it is like the songwriting and structures and the way he puts things together, the way he puts the vocals, the way the drums come in on and stuff. Like it's always like really unique and cool.
Yeah.
And there's all these little details in the songwriting that make it really rewarding to listen to his music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, completely agree.
So number 5 is something also came up earlier, and you know, there's no actual bias on my part, but this is a Drugoth with the Indomitable Spirit of Merciless Vengeance. And with a side thing of the Death Horde album as well, because I also felt that was amazing. But Death Horde, the Drugoth album, yes, it is very different from the previous stuff, like you mentioned, like, and that I know he did that on purpose, like he wanted to do something totally different, like, and he had this vision of doing it, like making his kind of like everything's kind of like this, you know, it is like his Panzer Division or his Transylvanian Hunger or something, right? So it's just full on from beginning to end. But that's part of why I don't know, I really love this album. I think that with what he's doing with this album, the songwriting is really, really strong at the same time. Like it's very, the riffing, the way that's put together. I am a big fan of like minimalist black metal stuff. So like, I'm down with the whole aspect of how it's all kind of, it almost feels like one long song in a way. You know what I mean? And a lot of the riffing is kind of that way he was doing it, and to explore like some of the riffs. He's like exploring like basically one riff in different ways, like across some of the songs. But I guess like I just think that it's I was really blown away when Drugov sent it to me. I was like, and heard it, because I was like, this is a really incredible album. Battles and Cease was an incredible album. This is another one for me. And one thing I really like about it is how it's got all these kind of, it's all one thing, and then the final track's like this really long, like weird droning song. And I love the contrast between going from like, all these like 3-minute but blasty songs, like this really long, like droning, like kind of song at the end. But of course, then I had Drugoth on to talk about the track by track and go through all the lyrics and stuff. So it's kind of those things, like the more I got to know like a lot more about like the intricacies of how he's writing the lyrics and everything. But it's kind of like you always say, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't put it in my list, right? Even if you're my friend or my band member, right? Like, but it's like he's both. But at the same time, I think that this was one of the albums that really did it for me this year.
I don't know about you. I have mentioned it before on the podcast, but I am consciously more critical of the music that my friends send me. And the reason for that is because I never want anybody on the podcast to question whether I have included or praised an album purely because I have a friendship or a personal investment in seeing the album do well. Of course, I want to see my friends do well, but in a lot of cases, I'm friends with these people because initially I got into their music, reached out to them, spoke, had them on the podcast, and then a friendship was formed. But I am consciously much more critical of their music. So when I say somebody's album is good, I genuinely mean that it's good. I'm not trying to help somebody out.
Yeah.
I never do that. I mean, I'm not going to necessarily come out and say in public, "Hey, this fucking sucks." But it's,
Yeah.
I've had a few people that have turned on me because because of that, because I'm a little freewheeling with my opinions. But I'm also not going to come out and say an album's good just for the sake of doing so.
No, me
Yeah, if
neither.
it carries my endorsement, it carries my endorsement as a fan first and foremost.
Yeah, and I definitely think people should check out the Drugoth album. In general, part of the reason that he and I work together with music nowadays is because I love to like his work. I love the albums he did with Drugoth.
Yeah.
We hit it off. You know what I mean? Like, so it's which is the way it should be. Like, you should be working together because you're a fan of each other's work. You know what I mean? Like, not
Well, he only has, as I go on Spotify right now and check, he only has 31 monthly listeners on Spotify, which is a disgrace. I mean,
Yeah, I got to get that up.
He's getting probably 3 cents for that, but let's help him get 6 cents. Get those fucking numbers up.
Yes, my number 4 is Darvaza with "We Are Him." So, of course, this had to be in the top 10.
Yeah.
The last Darvaza album was I think number 2 or number 3 on my list that year. Cause I think it was number 3 because it was like Hate Forest and Ritual Death beat it out slightly, but and that's the only reason it's at number 4 is just because the album's ahead of it. But Darvaza are, to me, one of the most premier black metal bands operating nowadays, in my opinion. Like, there's very few black metal bands that are better than them as far as songwriting, seriousness, just everything about the way everything about this album is like perfect. Like the way that songwriting is put together, the atmosphere, the production, the vocals, the atmosphere of it. Like, it's an album that leaves you wanting more at the end, like, so you can just listen to it on repeat over and over again if you want to, which is exactly how the previous album was. The only thing that I would say is that it doesn't have this Hungry Triumphant Darkness. Like, it doesn't have like anthem like that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, you know how that song was like just like this fucking
One
anthemic
of the
song.
best songs ever fucking written in black metal, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
but that's not a. It's still like, you know, a 10 out of 10 album for me. It's just not. It just doesn't have that kind of like perfection song. You know what I mean? That like stands alone.
This Hungry Triumph and Darkness it's kind of their Seek and Destroy, or their Rain in Blood, or I'm sure Bjorn would hate me saying it, but their New Level. So-
Right? Yeah. It's like that. It's like their Funeral Moon. You know, or I mean, uh, Freezing Moon.
Yeah.
I'm like combining. So yeah, it's like that. It's like that. So I would say We Are Him doesn't have a song quite on that level, but it's still an incredible album and
It
top
has,
tier.
in my opinion, one of the strongest starts of any album that came out this year. I just think that orchestral intro into Holy Blood. Holy Blood kind of has this, like, once it properly gets going, you just know you're in for a serious bruising. Now I'm not going to talk too much about it because it may or may not be on my list next week.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's it's not really even a spoiler to say it. I said it when the album was announced. Darvaza it's going to be a fucking seriously competitive year for Darvaza not to be in a Darvaza release to not be in my top 10.
Yeah, that's how it is for me. You know, if they release an album, it's probably going to be up there.
Yeah. No, I think I love it. And I would also say Bjorn, I would place in my top 5 active vocalists right now. Like, if I have to say top 5 vocalists in black metal presently, Attila number 1, Mortis number 2. At number 3, I would probably put, so number 3, 4, and 5. Let's not rank those. But definitely Bjorn has to be in there.
Yeah, he'd probably actually be my number 3. I think he's such a great vocalist.
Yeah. Nornagast, I think, makes a strong play to be included in that list as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, I think Nas is a potential contender. There's a couple of there's a couple of people who I think are, like, really operating at the elite levels. But actually, you're right. I think Bjorn is probably number 3.
Yeah, I just really love his style of vocals. In all the bands he does. Like like I said the other year when Ritual Death and the Darvaza album came out, there's like 2 and 3 on my list. Like I just really love his style of vocals that he does. It's and he's an intense fucking vocalist.
Yeah, Spellgoth would be in my he would be in my top 5 as well.
Yeah, I would say Spellgoth, and I would say Torog from Behexen, and
oh yeah,
I think Torog would actually be my number 3, and then Bjorn. And then, probably Spellgoth, actually. That'd probably be my top 5. So.
Well, we were talking earlier about greatest black metal songs of all time. Let the Horror and Chaos Come, off of My Soul for His Glory. That, to me, is one of the best black metal songs ever written. And anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, that is Behexen's 3rd album, I think.
My Soul for His Glory.
We're talking about, like, great vocal performances. That initial shriek at the beginning of Let the Horror and Chaos Come, when the song is, like, kicked in properly, it's like to the average ear, it would just sound like somebody going, like, losing their mind. But to me, that is a work of genius, because it is timed and deployed so perfectly, and it just adds to the brilliance of that track.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and I mean, any song on that album, any song on Nightside Emanations, any song on Poisonous Path, his vocals are consistently great on all of his albums.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, so we're now in the top 3.
Yep. So my number 3 is Hate Forest with Against All Odds. Again, if it's Hate Forest puts out an album, it's going to be in my top 10, like, just how it is. So and we got this time it tops. It's like it's the first Hate Forest album done entirely with real drums. And it sounds fucking epic. Like, it's really, really great to hear. it's like he found a drummer who can play Sorrow. You know what I mean? Like, and he made use of that on this album. It's definitely like probably it's in a very, very aggressive Hate Forest album. It's definitely like Sorrow. It's very it's very minimalistic and one-minded, one track mind throughout the songs. But I love that. That's why I love Hate Forest, and hearing him with a real drummer and just the ferocity that the album has. It's just another level. I mean, the previous album I think was amazing. It was my album of the year that year, and it was a great like mix between like the more atmospheric Hate Forest and the more aggressive. Like it reminded me of like Purity a lot for that reason.
Yeah.
But I really love that this album is just really it's so like refined. It's just like elegant and how one-minded and hateful it is. It's just like this ferocious album that it's only like 35 minutes and you can listen to it over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the best Hate Forest albums to come out for a while. I did really like Hour of the Centaur as well from 2020. But my introduction to Hate Forest was with Purity. That's still one of my favorite Hate Forest records. After that, Battlefields and Sorrow, I know are good records and well received records, but for some reason I just never spent a huge amount of time with them. And against all odds, I probably didn't give as much attention as I should have this year either. I liked the album, and the 2-3 times I listened to it, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that I necessarily felt compelled to go back to in the midst of everything else that was coming out at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Like for me, Hate Force is one of my favorite black metal bands, so it's like a really, really big fan of him. Again, ever since I was like 18 years old, heard Hate Force for the first time when my friend sent me the Scythia. I think he sent me Scythia first, like back in the AIM like days where you could like share like files. And then I heard it's Battlefields and then Scythia. Those are the two they sent me, and then I got like Purity and Sorrow. And Purity is probably my favorite Hate Forest album. I think it's got a good mixture between the two. And of course, then for a long time, Roman was just focused on his other stuff like Druidka and everything. But he didn't bring Hate Force back until like that when Hour of the Centaur came out, which was a total surprise a few years ago, like in 2020. All of a sudden, Hate Force is back. Like he had no announcements, and that was really exciting. And it's been really cool seeing him do new stuff. And right now, he's basically got a band that is the same band that's in Druidka, it's the same band that's in Windswept. Same guys are going to be doing his new Broom to Honor project that he's putting out this year, which I'm really excited about.
All right, your number 2.
So my number 2 is Paradise Lost with Ascension. So of course, Paradise Lost has to be again up there. I mean, I've talked about like they're possibly my favorite band right now of any genre. The only reason they're not number 1 is because I like the album's number 1 more, but a little bit more. And that's nothing against this album because this album is an incredible album I listen to a lot. I would say that it's a big step up from. I mean, Obsidian has actually grown on me a lot, particularly after I read the biography of Paradise Lost biography that I bought last year. But I still would say Obsidian's like, it's more a 7.5, 8 out of 10 Paradise Lost album as opposed to like a 9 or 10 out of 10. And I really liked Medusa a lot as well, but Medusa was definitely one track who was like very much just the aggressive side of things, right? So this feels really nice that it's kind of a return back to having a bit more of a mixture of stuff. Like it's not all just like Death Doom, like in the same way as Medusa was. We got clean singing, everything. 'Cause I have to say that I feel like there could have been more singing on this album, to be honest. Like
I think it was that second single that we listened to on the news rant, and we said like that song would have been perfect if a clean vocal had come in, and
yeah, I think it would have been better.
It would have provided more dynamics.
Yeah, there's a lot of points on the album I do think that they could add more clean singing. And my favorite songs on the album are the ones with singing, like Tyrant Serenade. It's one of my favorites. But it's a really, really strong album. For me, this is like maybe a 9 out of 10 as opposed to maybe like say Plague Within or Fate Divides Us or something, or a Tragic Idol, which are all 10 out of 10s for me. You know what I mean? Like I do like that it's just like 10 tracks or whatever. It's very simple and that thing, and you can listen to it a lot, you know?
I mean, it's a long album. It's quite an odyssey to listen to it from start to finish. And part of what makes it so enjoyable is the fact that it's such a diverse record. You know, Paradise Lost do different things on every album, but I do sometimes feel like even though they've got such a breadth of different sounding records, um, you know, and of different styles and ideas and sounds they've experimented with, they don't necessarily get as much credit as they should do for how
No.
willing they've been to experiment. And this album is a great example. My favorite song off the record was one that caught me completely by surprise, and that's "Lay a Wreath Upon the World," which is the first time I think I've heard them use acoustic guitars, possibly since like actual clean acoustic guitars, possibly since Shades of God. Um, what a fucking exceptional track, featuring one of the most beautiful performances I think I've heard by Nick Holmes. And then, you know, again, immediately followed up by another great song in Deluvium. And, you know, I mean, the whole album, just to me, from start to finish, is fucking top notch.
Yeah.
Agree with you. More dynamics would have been better, but it's only on one or two songs that I feel that applies.
Yeah.
I think overall, it's a great album, and I actually think the final three songs, Sirens, Deceivers, and The Precipice, I think is some of the strongest material on the record. So,
Yeah.
you know, where Obsidian Shrine, I mean, Hope Dies Young was an exception, but the problem that I had with Obsidian Shrine, I've said this many times before, it sounded to me like it was an album that couldn't make up its mind as to what it wanted to be. It had elements of Medusa, but it also had elements of kind of mid-era Paradise Lost, and none of those elements or none of those songs ever really nailed it for me. There were some exceptions. Hope Dies Young is a great song. Ghosts is a good song. But for the most part, I thought Fall from Grace, the first single they put out off of Obsidian, that was just a failure to me. It was a song that starts off well and just turns into a load of shit towards the end. And especially for a band that has got that level of, or that caliber of musicianship and that level of capability, it's not a song that should have made an album. And then they come back with Ascension, and it's just a perfect comeback.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Obsidian's definitely grown on me over time. Like I've listened to it a lot more. But this album is much stronger.
I mean, you mentioned Medusa before as got just kind of the aggression on, but it does have Shrines, which is a more delicate track.
Yeah.
A softer track, which I really love.
It's only got 2 songs that have clean singing, and one of them is a bonus track, I think. So,
Yeah.
you know, and then they're right at the end of the album. And but I don't get me wrong, I love that album. That was like my disappointment when it came out, was I was like, okay, like there's only 2 songs that have clean singing. I mean, I guess I appreciate that they tried something different with it, and you know, they did it well, but for me, I love Nick Holmes as a clean singer, you know. That's
Yeah.
like my favorite era is my top favorite era of Paradise Lost is like in Requiem and Faith Divides Us, you know, and then also like Draconian Times and Icon, you know, that you know. So for me, like I like Nick Holmes doing his singing, you know. One thing that I liked on this album that was really cool is to hear him do his kind of like Icon Draconian Times like growly singing vocal, you know,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
growly, but you know, it rough singing. Like he doesn't do that very much because I think it's hard for on his voice, and so it was cool to hear him do that again too. You know what I mean?
You know, you talk about that rough singing. You know, even when they do what's that? As I Die nowadays, you can tell he struggles with it. But Shades of God, man, what a fucking album. Because I was thinking when you were talking about your favorite era of Paradise Lost, I don't even know if I have a favorite era because each of the eras speak to me in a different way. You know, Shades of God and Gothic remind me of school days, discovering Paradise Lost for the first time. Icon probably ties into that, but it took on additional meaning for me when I saw them play it live, and my daughter was with me for to see that show, that celebration show that they did at in Shepherd's Bush in London. Draconian Times, that has a different feel to me, but it's no less brilliant. It's it's an incredibly, it's an album that should have made them far bigger than they ended up being. But for me, really really love it. 1 Second and Host, a lot of people hated. I absolutely love. And then when everybody had kind of given up on them, the first time I ever saw them live was when they were touring for Symbol of Life, and I saw them do Pray Nightfall and Primal and a couple of songs that they never do live nowadays, and that was just magic. Again, why they don't do that song, why they don't do Pray Nightfall live still, I don't understand. In Requiem has got potentially one of my favorite Ever Paradise Lost songs on, Your Own Reality. Just a song that somehow in 4 minutes summarizes everything that's brilliant about the band.
Yeah.
And then you've got later stage, Paradise Lost, Tragic Idol, which agree with you, 10 out of 10. The Plague Within, superb album. Medusa, superb album. The only one where they dropped off a bit to me was Obsidian, and All Is Forgiven, because Ascension is a absolute return to form.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely think Obsidian, maybe they're trying to do like what they did in Plague Within, where Plague Within's like a perfect balance between the Death Doom and the clean singing styles. You know what I mean? Like there's a perfect amount of both. Sometimes leave it, and I definitely felt like that. Obsidian, they tried to do it, but it didn't quite make it. But then Ascension, they've kind of made it, because there is a really good. I wish there was a bit more clean singing, like I said, but I also think that there's a lot really good balance. You know what I mean? But I do think musically, this is more like some of the older stuff. I hear a bit more of Shades of God. I hear a bit of Icon. I hear a bit of Faith Divides Us era. There's something. It's kind of there's some interesting stuff going on in.
All right, so your number one.
So my number one is Tombs with Feral Darkness. I think that Mike has kind of outdone himself. So I love the last album. Like I think that, well, I pretty much like a lot of, I like most of Tombs albums, but I definitely think that Under Soul and Skies was like on this next level for Tombs in a lot of ways. But I kind of like this is on another level, because I really feel like this album is consistently from beginning to end has this type of dark atmosphere and raw kind of quality to it that I think was missing from, like Under Soul and Skies was an amazing album. It was very clean, very clear, this album, they kind of still have the raw edges. Like you can feel like, I don't know, it reminds me more of when I've seen them live, I guess. I think they've managed to really capture the energy of Tombs live on this album really for the first time, and I think that's part of, because that was like the thing when I first saw Tombs live. I was like, I mean, this is like, over a decade ago, and I was like, it was amazing live, and I listened to the recordings, and I thought the recordings were good, because this was, I think, Savage Gold was like the newest album, and I was kind of like, I felt like the albums were just didn't quite capture how Tombs was live, and as time's gone on, they've gotten closer and closer out of each album, and I think they finally really achieved it with this one. But on top of that, it's just the songwriting, the way that the structures are, the atmosphere of the whole album. I think it's probably Tombs' best album, in my opinion.
My initial impression of the album was that it was what what Mike always envisioned the Grand Annihilation to potentially be. But as I've gone back to the album, I think it's actually something that's a lot more than that. And I mean that in a very positive way. It does have some of the elements of the Grand Annihilation that I loved, but it is a lot darker. It's a lot heavier. It's a lot more aggressive. And ultimately an album that, the flowers that it's getting at the moment are well deserved.
I think it's been on everybody's list that I know.
Yeah.
That has been on my show. Yeah.
No, without a doubt. The title track, Feral Darkness, might be one of the best things that Mike has ever written. And I'm delighted that it's doing so well for him because it's richly deserved.
Yeah, no, I just think he's outdone himself. Like you said, there's like new stuff going on it. Like there's songs that have like some more death metal on them. There's songs, but there's also like a song like Nightlands, which is like probably my favorite song in the album, which is like very moody and dark. Uh, Feral Darkness is amazing. Like it is. Feral Darkness is kind of like on Under Soul Skies you had The Hunger, which was like like for me like probably the real catchy song that really stuck out.
Which I also love, by the way.
Yeah. I think that Feral Darkness is kind of like this album's The Hunger in a way, like, or it's like super pretty kitschy. But I think what I love about this album is that it goes from song to song to song, and once you put it on, like you're just kind of you have to listen to it from beginning to end because it's just like the way that the way everything flows. It just feels like it just flows so well. You know what I mean?
Excellent. Well, my friend, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your top 10 with me. And I know you build it up on your show and kind of have the culmination on Into the Necrosphere. I appreciate that. And next year, hopefully, we will do the same thing again.
Yeah.
As it is your top 10, you get gentleman's choice. What is the song that you want us to play?
So I guess we'll close out with Tombs with Nightlands. That's what I'd like.
Right.
Yeah.
And we will have you back on the podcast again at some point very soon. We need to do some more news rants this year.
Yeah.
And we need to do. I know we've been talking for just 2 years now about doing the Fugazi special on Sol Nox. I'm still down for that, or any other band that you want to do. So just let me know.
Yeah, we got to do that. We definitely have some bands to do for that on Sol Nox. So, and yeah, anytime you want me on news rant, just let me know. I'm always down. So, always enjoy doing that.
Awesome. Well, great having you on, brother. And we will speak again soon. This Legion is Tombs off of Karl Hikara, the Sinister Minister's #1 album of 2025. The song is Nightland. You just heard Nightland by Tombs, taken from their absolutely ferocious new album, Feral Darkness. It is available right now on the Redefining Darkness record label. Bandcamp link, as always, in the description to the podcast. A reminder that that was the #1 album of 2025, as decreed by my guest this week, the Sinister Minister, Karl Hikara. If you are watching this on YouTube, my apologies for some of the technical issues in the second half of our conversation. I did clean it up as best I could, but I don't know what the reason was, whether it was a StreamYard problem or whether it was an issue with one of our internet connections. I did listen back to it, and it seemed to come out okay, but I hope the jumpiness of the visuals wasn't too distracting. And, you know, just in case you're conspiratorial, don't worry, I wasn't cutting out anything that was particularly controversial. Next week, of course, I'm back alongside Mike Hill from Tombs, and we are going to be counting down our respective top 10s of 2025, and then I will reveal the winner of the Into the Necrosphere Best Album of 2025 award, perhaps the most prestigious award in all of the underground. So that is coming your way next week. Don't you dare miss it. Right now, my friends, if you're an admirer of that old mothball, that dusty old fart Roger Waters, then take your copy of the Communist Manifesto and your blow-up doll of Karl Marx and hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment and hang them where the world can see.
Before we get started on the latest headlines over at metalstorm.net, two announcements were made by Fortress Festival this week that I wanted to share with you, particularly those of you who will be attending on May 30th and May 31st at Scarborough in the UK. The In Conversation series that you enjoyed last year and the year before is back. It will be hosted partly by yours truly. And the first two participants who I will be speaking to have been confirmed. They are Vinterland, the Swedish melodic black metal legends. They're actually going to be at the festival performing their cult classic debut album, Welcome My Last Chapter, in its entirety. They're going to be sitting down with me. And then one I am personally extremely excited about, Akerkocker, will be at the festival performing my favorite album of all time by no small margin, Corensen, in its entirety. And I'm going to be sitting down with those guys as well. In both instances, not entirely sure yet who my guests will be exactly. For Akerkocker, I think it's probably safe to place a bet on it being Dave Gray and Jason Mendonça. But either way, make sure that if you're going to be at the festival, you plan the day accordingly. We're going to do some audience Q&A. I'm sure if you've got some merch and you ask nicely, the guys in the band will let you sign it, or will sign it for you. Yeah, we're going to have us a great time. Both will be recorded, of course. Both will be incorporated into future episodes of Into the Necrosphere. So if you don't make it to Scarborough Spa on the 30th of May and the 31st of May, then fear not. But if you're not there in person, you are going to be missing out. Let's be honest. Another thing just to say as I make my way over to Metal Storm, I am starting to book guests for or guests to appear on the show post my 2025 or best of 2025 extravaganza, and those guests are looking mighty tasty. There's one who I have been trying to get on the podcast for over a year. Spoke to him over the weekend. By the time that most of you are listening to this, we will already, if nothing changes in the schedule, we will already have recorded our episode together. Because I am a paranoid and superstitious man, I will not be sharing who it is just yet. But if you follow me on Instagram or you follow me on Facebook, I'll share a few nuggets once everything is done, once that interview is in the tank. Either way, it is one I am super excited about. I've got a bunch of other things happening too. So 2026, I think, is going to be a great year. One of the things that will be happening in 2026, of course, is that Vreid are back after their critically acclaimed album, Wild Northwest, that came out back in 2021. An album that, if memory serves me correctly, was nominated for a bunch of different awards. I can't remember off the top of my head which ones, but I mean, there was a lot of hype and a lot of noise around that record. And then for some reason, they just kind of seemed to die down. So not quite sure what happened there, but either way, they are back. Their new album is called The Skies Turn Black. It's going to be out on the 6th of March, and they've just put out a new single entitled Kraken. Let's hear what it sounds like. Well, a lot of us might have wondered what Vreid were going to be doing as the follow-up to Wild Northwest, and I think we now have our answer. Whatever the fuck they feel like. In between footage of grown-ups mucking about on jet skis and kayaking on the Norwegian fjords, I mean, putting out a instrumental as a single to get people excited about your new album is definitely a brave choice. Now, this is actually not the first single they're putting out. They put out another one called From These Woods. I think maybe we should give that one a listen as well, because if we just pause and talk about this song, I actually do quite like it. It sounds to me like the sort of instrumental that you could have, or that a band could start a show off with, and it would really help kind of set the tone and help build some of that excitement and that anticipation, especially if they're playing a headlining show. I can't remember what year this was, but Metallica were doing for a period of time Orion as the first song of every show that they did, and this must have been around the time that they were doing Orion Festival, and I really liked that. I thought that was fucking cool. Once I saw Obituary, and they started the show with Dying, which I thought was brilliant as well. So, as an interlude or as a potential set intro, I think Kraken is a pretty cool song. If you're a black metal purist, it's maybe not going to be to your taste. But, I think that if you're a black metal purist, you gave up on Vreid a fucking long time ago. But like I said, I do want to hear the first single that they released off this, because that was put out while I was away on vacation. So, and that might give us a better idea of what to expect from the record. That track is called From These Woods. We head over to YouTube to hear what that sounds like, and we'll give it about 90 seconds or so. Okay, I gave that one slightly longer time than I had initially anticipated, but only because I was actually enjoying it. I love to know what you guys think about this, but it's been a while since I've listened to Wild Northwest, and I mean, I don't think in the year that it came out, it even made my my top 30 of that year, or my top 20. I think I was still doing top 20s at the time, but it is a good album. This to me sounds like it's a step up from that record. There's certainly things that sound similar. The production is very crisp and clean. I particularly like how clear the bass sounds. But it definitely sounds like a step up and probably a bit more of a return to Vreid's black metal roots. I mean, it certainly sounds unmistakably Norwegian. Yeah, overall, I like it. Thumbs up for me, and I am looking forward to hearing the rest of the record now. That is for sure. Something else that I'd highlight from this song that I think sounds really cool: Sturer's vocal performance. Sounds powerful, sounds ballsy, more so than I recall it being on Wild Northwest. So anyway, good to have them back, and we shall see what the rest of the record sounds like when it drops on March the 6th. They are now on Indie Records, by the way, or Indie Recordings, as opposed to Season of Mist, which is interesting. But anyway, we move on. Witch Ripper to release Through the Hourglass record. It says here, Witch Ripper are pleased to unveil the details and first single in what will be their third studio album entitled Through the Hourglass. It'll be set free on April the 10th, 2026 through Magnetic Eye Records. Much like the word funeral, the word witch is another one that I think is long overdue retirement. You've got Witchfinder General, Witchcraft, Witchery, Witch Mountain, Witch Vomit, Witchfinder, Witch Trap, Witch Cross, Witch Sorrow. There are just too many fucking bands using the word witch, skeleton witch, in their names. And it is time for it to come to an end now. So hopefully there is now a moratorium on it. Any new bands, any band that registers themselves on Metal Archives in 2026 and beyond is henceforth forbidden from using the word witch in their name. Now, that being said, I've no idea what Witch Ripper sounds like, but we're about to find out. This is a track called The Portal. I think that if you're like me and you handed in your Ghost fan card after Meliora back in 2015 because you had come to the conclusion that they had worn out their gimmick and had started to suck, then I don't know, maybe Witch Ripper might be a band for you, because it's described on Metal Archives as stoner or sludge metal. And I don't know what their other record or what their other albums sound like, or what their other songs on this record sounds like. But this to me sounds like how I wish a band like Ghost could sound. There's definite reverence here to old school heavy metal. I mean, there's maybe a little bit of kind of stoner or sludge, like Sabbathy stoner or sludge influences here, but it actually ends up being something that sounds reasonably unique. And I also have to say, I like Curtis Parker's voice. I think his clean singing and his shout sounds very cool. When he goes into the more gruff vocals, it almost has a slightly mastodon feel to me, but that's not a bad thing. Overall, again, this is going to get a thumbs up for me. Not a band that I was expecting to be blown away by. And I wouldn't say I'm sitting here quivering with excitement about Through the Hourglass, but it's certainly a record that I'll put on the list. I'll tell you something, though. As far as this style of music, and I did have a member of this band on the podcast way back. This must have been like episode maybe 160, 170. But a band in this style who make absolutely superb music, Druids out of Iowa. That last album of theirs, Shadow Work, was absolutely fucking sensational. Came out on the 3rd of June in 2022. And I had Keith Rich from Druids on the podcast around the time of its release. And that was one that I sought out personally. It wasn't someone from a record label that got in touch with me. I just enjoyed the album so much. I thought it would be cool to have him on the show. So, if you like what you heard there, check out Druids and that Shadow Work album. That's an album that, in my opinion, didn't nearly get enough of its flowers at the time. Okay. We move on, friends. And by the way, stick around because many of you have asked. So naturally, I'm going to have to acquiesce and do it. But a lot of you guys sent me messages over the course of the last couple of days asking me what I think of the new Megadeth, and particularly what I think of their cover of Ride the Lightning. So we will get to that later on. First up, though, we've got Sail. Let's for argument's sake say they're called Sail. It says here 3 weeks prior the release of their new LP Forebode, black metal purveyors Sail offering listening another new track in preview entitled The Deception of Decadence. Vocalist Jesse Petum explains, the lyrics portray an inner battle with darkness, pain, and the slow draining of life and identity. They explore obsession with death, transcendence, and the cycle of rise, growth, and destruction. It sounds like he was speaking, I don't know where these guys are from, but speaking potentially in his native language, and they used a decades-old version of Google Translate to come up with that statement. Anyway, let's just skip past all that hooting and hollering, and let's hear what Deception of Decadence sounds like. So, first of all, an apology. I've just been corrected by Metal Archives on the pronunciation of this band's name. They are called Solya, and they are now, by my count, onto their fifth album. I mean, not bad. I think the song starts off relatively unremarkably. It really just sounds like fairly stock standard second wave influenced black metal in the beginning, and then around about the 1 minute mark, you have a shift in tone and a shift in gears, and it starts to become a lot more interesting. Now, of further interest, Jesse Petum, who was quoted fairly cack-handedly earlier, was in a project called Metal Against Coronavirus. And it seems as though one of their most powerful releases came in 2023. That was entitled "We Will Triumph." I kind of feel like coronavirus was more or less done and in the rear view by the time we hit 2023. But lest I get cries of coronavirus denier in the comments, we won't discuss that any further. Either way, Solya gets a cautious thumbs up. Like, it's not, it's nothing to be hugely excited about, but it's not terrible either. Okay, Saasta is a band out of Finland, a doom death metal crew, it says here. They've just revealed the music video for their newest single entitled "The Leeches." Let's hear what this one sounds like. That opening riff is just pure stank face. Like you cannot help but turn your I was about to say turn your frown upside down, go into full metal frown as soon as you hear that. It is fucking excellent. Really cool groove. I just like everything about the song. It's not overly original, but it just works on every possible level. And inexplicably, these guys are unsigned. They put out an album in 2022 called Crucial to None, and then since then they've put out Sickness, a single in 2023. They put out an EP in 2023 called Black Death Doom, and then The Leeches is their first release for 3 years. Fun fact as well, Saasta means filth, smut, impurity, and dirt in Finnish. But yeah, I really like this. And I think if anybody from a record label is listening, I'd look into them, because if this is an indicative of what they're working on right now, I don't know what their previous music sounds like. It might be shit, who knows? But if this is indicative of where they're headed, I'd get me a contract ready. how old Cornell at Transcending Obscurity hasn't gotten a contract in front of these guys yet, I don't know. But I think this gets a thumbs up, maybe even a top notch for me. Might be the first top notch for the day. So yeah, good work, Saasta. Okay, Triumpher. It's a fucking terrible name for a band, but Triumpher are premiering a music video for Ithaca, Return of the Eternal King, the second preview tune of their next full-length effort, Piercing the Heart of the World. The latter comes out on March the 6th via No Remorse Records. I don't know why, but I just think this is going to be fucking dreadful. And because I've already clicked on it and committed to hearing it, you're going to have to as well. So let's hear what the latest soon-to-be smash hit single by Triumpher sounds like.
I wake as the shoreline slowly sighs, aura of scents from jasmine and thyme, a palette of memories from years long ago. The chariot of sun rides with its warming glow, lighting the fields where the wild roses grow. They calling me home through the wind's mighty blow.
So I have to admit, when I first saw on this music video, and you would have noticed it as well if you were watching this on YouTube, a member of the band staring into the camera and smiling, I knew that we were in for a bumpy ride. And sure enough, I know we're only 90 seconds or so in, but this is definitely not my tempo. It might be your tempo if you're a fan of Manowar, and I know many members of the Legion are. That unfortunately is not a band, much like Wasp is to others, I'll concede, but Manowar is not a band that ever found fertile soil with yours truly. Triumpher, I also actually thought for a period of time, for a few split moments, might be a Christian metal band, but then at least I saw somebody in the music video wearing an Asheron t-shirt, and that gave me some comfort. But overall, yeah, not my vibe. Nice vocal performance. I'll definitely give them that. I couldn't sing that well, that's for goddamn sure. And who knows what the rest of the album sounds like. I mean, if you're wearing an Asheron t-shirt, I would imagine that there'll be some balls in some of the songs at some point on the record. But yeah, what we heard there is gonna get a thumbs down. It's gonna get a thumbs down, but with a caveat. As I said, I think if you're into more traditional, old school Manowar style heavy metal, maybe that's a band that you want to check out. A band I know that most of you probably won't want to check out, but we're gonna give a listen all the same. Worm Shepherd, described here as blackened deathcore band. They've just announced their return with a new EP, and that's entitled Dawn of the Iconoclast, set for release on February the 20th via Unique Leader Records. Unique Leader Records, a label where the old quality assurance department has has experienced the after effects of some chronic underinvestment, particularly in the last couple of years. It says here the band also released a first preview sharing a music video for the track Whispers of a Buried Land. Now, just one thing I want to say before we get started with the song. We were mentioning earlier that the word witch is something that we need to retire and no longer have as band names or in a registered band name going forward. Worm is another one of the words that I never want to see in a band name ever again. We've got worm, we've got wormrot, wormed, Worm Witch, who, in fairness, is fucking excellent. Wormhole, Wormlust, Wormwood, Gore Worm, Cancer Worm, Worm Shepherd. We've got enough worms. No more in 2026. Now, that rant aside, let's hear what Whispers of a Buried Land sounds like. For proof that deathcore is the paper tiger of extreme music. Again, there's all show, no go, those vocals. You can hear he's doing his level best to sound as menacing and aggressive as he possibly can. Just sounds lame. The music sounds like every old other fucking bullshit deathcore band I've ever heard. There really is only one deathcore band worth paying any attention to, and that is Despised Icon. Besides that, I could pretty much live without any of them ever making music ever again. And Worm Shepherd is no exception. That doesn't even get a caveat. That just gets a full bore thumbs down. It fucking sucks. All right, Exodus detail their new record, their upcoming record, Goliath. It says here, just after announcing that they are supporting Sepultura on their final North American tour, Bay Area thrash metal veterans Exodus have now confirmed that their new album, Goliath, is due for release on March the 20th, 2026 via Napalm Records. Goliath will be the band's first LP with vocalist Rob Dukes in over 15 years, and the band have also premiered the first single entitled 3131. Let's give it a spin. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. And, you know, I mentioned back in 2021, Persona non grata, the previous Exodus record. That was probably one of my biggest and most pleasant surprises of 2021. But I was also a fan of the Rob Dukes era of Exodus. So I am glad to hear him back in the band. I mean, I still think Shovel-Headed Kill Machine is I mean it's one of my favorite Exodus albums. So hearing him back sounding fucking more pissed off than ever, that is a good thing. The only criticism I have here is that you would think that Napalm Records would have taken a little more effort with the first single or launching the first single by a band like Exodus. I mean, they're not small fry, and all we get here is an album thumbnail on YouTube, and that's it. You know, I know I know I've said that I don't really care about music videos, but you know, lyric video maybe, you know, fucking anything would have been better than this. Like, this just feels like, I mean, it feels like maybe, I don't know whether the band put this out and Napalm Records did nothing. It kind of feels to me like Napalm Records don't give a shit about the fact that they've got, you know, one of the perennial biggest you know, thrash bands in history on their roster. And by the way, you're doing it around about the time that everybody is reading the Gary Holt book. I'm also reading it, by the way. I think it's fucking excellent, but everybody's reading it. Like, if ever there was going to be a time to be excited about Exodus, you know, or to kind of help relaunch this band, now's the time. But anyway, that's just a side quibble. The song itself I like. I think the riff sounds cool. I think it sounds aggressive. It sounds like Exodus. Rob Duke sounds cool, and he sounds like he's slotted back into the band without any problems whatsoever. So that gets a thumbs up. I actually wanted to mention something very quickly too. A longtime Legion member, My Munster 666 on YouTube, commented on episode 301. Top album of the year is Coroner. After that, Warfield, Sodom, Destruction, Dead Heat, Hazard, Void, Testament, Species, Benediction, Sacrifice, Frightful, and Doomsday. There you go, Jacko. Feel free to copy and paste. He also adds top Testament songs, Disciples of the Watch, DNR, and Symptoms. 2025 was the year of thrash. I'm practically bankrupt trying to keep up. Thought I would share that since we're listening to a thrash song, and you know, the man clearly has good taste. Misguided, of course, in his top 10 of 2025, but you know, I'm not going to hold that against him. If you do have your top 10 that you want to share, drop it in the comments, and I might read it on a future news rant. Right, on to some more music. Monstrosity are releasing their first LP in 8 years. US death metal machine Monstrosity are set to unleash their 7th full-length installment entitled Screams from Beneath the Surface. That is due out on March the 13th, 2026 via Metal Blade Records, comprised of 10 new songs. To taste the first piece of the new music, give a listen to the Colossal Rage single. This is the first Monstrosity track that I've heard with their new vocalist, Edwin Webb. He joined the band in 2021, I believe. Formerly of Diabolic, he also had a stint in Massacre. He's in Destined to Ruin, Flesh Reaper, and Genera Christ. I think the brief, again, especially if you watch the music video, I think the brief was, we want you to sound and look exactly like George Corpse Grinder Fisher. So, I mean, his vocals are, almost, I would say, if you played that to somebody that didn't know Cannibal Corpse, wasn't familiar with the first Monstrosity album, Imperial Doom, where that actually had Corpse Grinder on, but let's say you played Imperial Doom and you played this side by side, I don't think the average person would be able to tell you that they've had a change in vocalist, that it's two different vocalists singing there. Which again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's almost comical how close he is sounding to Corpse Grinder on that song. Still sounds cool though. I mean, actually, around the 1 minute 20 seconds, I think it was like 1 minute 20 seconds. I was like, okay. He's sounding so close to Corpse Grinder, but the one thing that's different is he doesn't go, lay into the high pitches, into the screams quite as much. Sure enough, scream at about 1 minute 22. So overall, though, I would say I like that song. Monstrosity is a band that they were always a B tier band in my view. Like, they were never going to be Immolation or Cannibal Corpse or Morbid Angel or Deicide. But I enjoyed Millennium. I enjoyed Imperial Doom. I think I probably checked out around In Dark Purity for no other reason than there was just a bunch of other stuff that was coming out that I was more interested in. By that time I was so deeply into black metal that it was only kind of the true cream of the crop, like Dying Fetus, that was going to make any kind of impression on me. But yeah, I mean, it sounds to me certainly like in 2026 these guys still have fucking plenty of fuel in the tank. There's catchiness to the song. I think the song is well written. It sounds aggressive. And for all of the comments that I made about Edwin's voice sounding like George, he does sound cool. I kind of said it earlier, but just to reiterate, in case it came across like I was being nasty, I think he does sound good. So yeah, another thumbs up. It's been again a pretty consistently good day so far, or a consistently good news rant. And again, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people super excited about the fact that Monstrosity are back. It's definitely been a good couple of years for death metal. You guys will find out whether there's any death metal bands included in my top 10 when I get to that next week. But I mean, certainly numbers 30 to 21, that had plenty of good death metal in. And one that I just want to say again, if you slept on this album, don't immediately go back and check it out. But Glorious Depravity, holy fucking shit, what a good record that was, and so surprising. Not something that I was expecting whatsoever. I mean, obviously I knew about the band because I follow Chris Krieg. I really like Woe. So when I heard the album, which just as a reminder is called Death Never Sleeps, I was like, fuck me, these guys are, these guys mean business. And again, like I said last week, especially if you like Deicide style death metal, that to me is better than anything Deicide has done since Stench of Redemption. I said that and meant it. All right. On the topic of death metal, Spain's melodic death metal act Bloodhunter are back with a brand new single entitled The Devil's Own. That was recorded, mixed, and mastered by Tu Madsen. The accompanying video clip was produced by David Rameau. Tu Madsen is a pretty big deal producer. That being said, I have no idea who Bloodhunter are. I've never heard of them before in my life. They are on Reigning Phoenix Music, another label where the quality assurance department, the quality assurance team seems to basically never check in for work. But let's hear what The Devil's Own sounds like. If I had to say anything good about this, it would be that old Diva Satanica, who's the vocalist for Bloodhunter, might want to consider dusting off her resume and sending it to Sweden, Holmstad, Sweden, to be exact, because as far as I know, Arch Enemy is still short a vocalist, and it sounds to me like she might do a pretty decent job of filling out, I should say, the size 4s left behind by Alyssa Whiteglass. By the way, Alyssa from Arch Enemy, her solo music is, I mean, Arch Enemy sucks, but good lord, that shite that she fucking churned out, and that she's peddling now that she's left the band, holy fuck, it's terrible. But yeah, anyway, I mean, I know there's rumors that potentially Angela Gosso is coming back. I'm not so sure about that. I know that she's got family commitments and stuff like that. But if they're short a vocalist, I think old Diva Satanica should apply at the very least. I mean, she's still going to be making music I don't enjoy, but at least she's going to be paid for doing so. This Bloodhunter song, very, very, very mid. And I suspect that everyone from every member of the Legion is probably going to agree with me. So more than that, we don't need to say. Moving on, Uada present the Purging Fire music video. Uada have launched a video for the reimagined version of the Purging Fire track, originally released on their sophomore record, Cult of a Dying Sun. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think the whole point of this this new stuff they've put out is that they are, well, actually, no, it seems like it's just the one song. I don't know if it's like a whole album, but I know just from stuff I read on the socials that this is like a folk version of the Purging Fire, which it'll be interesting to see what they do with that, because, you know, for as many people as absolutely adore this band, and I know several that love this band, they just not a band that has ever done very much for me. But, you know, that being said, I'm willing to give it a chance. Let's hear what the Purging Fire sounds like. That is excellent. For all the smoke that I have blown the way of Uada over the years, I got to say, if they decided that they were going to ditch the black metal and just go in this direction full time, I think I would probably consider myself a Uada fan. I don't know whether that was Jake. I would assume it's Jake Superchi doing vocals, but he sounds great. Reminds me a little bit of King Dude. maybe of the guy from Rome as well. As a matter of fact, it actually sounds. I think that's probably why I like it. It's kind of got a bit of a Rome vibe, the song. But yeah, just everything here works. Great atmosphere. The song itself sounds fucking cool. It doesn't sound like a previously, like they do the style of black metal they do, it's just not abrasive enough. It's not attacking enough for my tastes. But when they bring it into this style and this vibe, something completely different. The production, the recording is really, really good. Like it makes me want to fire up the old hi-fi and listen to it on there, because I think this would sound really, really cool on a well-appointed sound system, such as the one I am very very fortunate to have. No, across the board, I think this is excellent. I don't know whether there's plans to put out a whole album that sounds like this, but if there is, I am on board for it without a shadow of a doubt. This is top notch. All right, so before we go any further, I absolutely have to talk about the new Megadeth album, the final Megadeth album, and Dave's pathological obsession with Metallica. Now, of course, everyone knows that he recorded a cover of Ride the Lightning. We'll listen to that in just a second. That was something that many of you guys asked for my opinion on. So, naturally, I won't deprive you of it. But I did have to share this little gold nugget with you. This is off a recent Blabbermouth article, where even in the intro to the article, you can tell they are tired of him. But this is an extract from an interview, I believe, that he did with Rolling Stone magazine. It reads, elaborating on his reasons for recording Ride the Lightning for Megadeth's final album, Mustaine said, "Our intentions were pure. I didn't have any reason I was going to say, oh, hey, man, this thing we've had for 40 years where you guys will never tour with me doing this song is going to change things." So he completely neglects to mention that they did tour together in 2010 and 2011 as part of the Big Four package. They played 14 shows together. On top of the fact that who in their right mind would want to spend any length of time with someone as perpetually jilted as Dave Mustaine, let alone take the man out on tour with him. Recent examples of his bitterness include Metal Hammer posted this back in March of 2023. Dave Mustaine claims Metallica always tried to hold me back. NME in August 2021 reported, Dave Mustaine doesn't think Metallica could have survived with him in the band. Metal Injection, also March of 2023, reported, Mustaine said Metallica got a big head start on the back of what he helped create. And then, of course, he was also on the Joe Rogan Experience in August of 2022, expressing bitterness about Metallica using his riffs after his dismissal, and on and on and on it goes until the very last note of his last album. Now, the last note of his last album happens to be the cover for Ride the Lightning, a song which admittedly he did help write, certainly contributed a very significant part to. And like I said, many of you guys asked me what I thought of the song. Let's give it 60, maybe 90 seconds, and I'll tell you what I think.
is my only friend. My fingers twitch with fear. What am I doing here? Flash before my eyes. Now it's time to die. Burning in my brain. I can feel the flame. Someone help me. Oh, please God help me. They're trying to take it all away. I don't want to die.
So, look, I've seen a lot of social media posts about this album, both good and bad. It seems to be a record that is very sharply dividing people. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think the cover is fucking terrible. Dave sounds every one of the 64 years of age that he is now, especially around the chorus. I mean, just overall, it's just a completely unnecessary thing to have included on the record. That being said, business-wise, it's actually a pretty smart decision because, I mean, what has been a bigger talking point? The fact that it is Megadeth's final album, or the fact that Megadeth included a Metallica cover song on this record? I think there's absolutely no question that the fact that he did a cover of a Metallica song has been what people have been most fixated on, which is sad because, you know, thinking about Dave's biggest issue, I think in Dave's mind, he's always going to be, I think he thinks of himself, and I don't want to sound like a psychoanalyst here, but I'm probably going to end up coming across as one. But reflecting on it and having read his book, I genuinely think he thinks of himself as a loser. I think he's always going to feel like that loser, that was kicked out of the band in the early 80s. And, he has spent his entire life trying to prove that he isn't that man. And despite the fact that by every measure, he is anything but a loser, I just don't think he can get over it. I don't think he can get over how he felt when Metallica showed him the door. I mean, as things stand, Megadeth has sold by, most estimations, anywhere from 40 to 50 million albums. Dave has a net worth of somewhere between, again, depending on what sources you believe, somewhere between 18 and 35 million dollars. He has a successful wine label called House of Mustaine. He's done stuff outside of Megadeth that has been usually successful. He's got from what I can tell, has got a great, happy, healthy family. So, there's absolutely no reason to feel this way, and there's absolutely no need to continue to harbor this simmering resentment for Metallica, which, also seems to kind of, he'll seem to have turned a corner, and then it just comes straight back again. Like, I think when Metallica did I think this was for their 30th anniversary, they had him on stage with them for some of those shows that they did I think they did them in they did some club shows in San Francisco, and they had him on stage with them. And I remember him saying in interviews, the hatchet's buried, everything is fine now. He did the same after the Big Four, and then, after that, just cannot help himself. And then he wonders why. And I mean, if anyone thinks that he doesn't wonder this, they need to have their fucking heads read. But, he wonders why Metallica wouldn't take Megadeth on tour with them. So I mean, the album overall, I think is atrocious, and that comes from someone who thinks that Rust in Peace is a 10 out of 10 record, one of the greatest, thrash albums of all time, without any question. It's a record I still go back to. So it's not like I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Megadeth hater, but this new album. I mean, I still don't think that Megadeth is done. I will guarantee you after this fucking tour, they'll tour for like 3-4 years. Guarantee you there will be another Megadeth album. Mark my words. I'm saying this on the 25th of January, 2026 at 12 minutes past 12. There will be another Megadeth album without a shadow of a doubt. But in the meantime, if you like the album, good for you. My standards are a little higher and a little different. You can't even begin to compare this new Megadeth to that new Exodus single. Exodus actually sound like they're on fire. They're not comparing themselves to Metallica 24/7. So anyway, you asked for my opinion, you got it. Right now, my friends, as we come to the final minutes of the weekly news rant, it is time for a short but very well deserved Swirly of the Week. The Swirly of the Week this week goes out to none other than a slack-jawed simpleton on YouTube who goes by the name Doom Wizard X7X. Now, there are some guests that I have on the podcast where, you know, for the most part, I've been very, very lucky in that I've managed to build up an audience doing this podcast of people where 99.9% of the time, any interactions that I've had with any of you, I'd be proud to call you a friend and I'd be proud to sit down and have a beer with you. And I genuinely hope that any public interactions you've had with me, you know, if we've seen each other at a festival or at a show or wherever else, has always been positive. But you know, every so often you have a more prolific guest come on the podcast, and that tends to bring out the fucking weirdos from the woodwork. And Doom Wizard might be the weirdest of them all. Commenting on my interview with Gol that I recorded back at Beyond the Gates that I released on episode 284, Doom Wizard writes, "In America, the rainbow forced people to learn gay to our kids, and a lot of little's boys are gay now. Gol is gay with little American boys." And then he puts about maybe, I'd say 15 laughing emojis down. America! Exclamation. Strange activities. Freak atmosphere. Car crash. Fake news. Military code. Car horn. It's all his fault. It's not Satan, Lucifer, Jesus, Buddha, but the great Satan from 90s second attack. America, we received your daughters, Christian girls, but they scan IA us. Delta USA to Alpha French Canadian. We most team up. I responded, extraordinary insight and intelligence in this comment. Have you published any books that I could buy? It would be an honor to learn more from someone with your superhuman intellect. Doom Wizard did not respond, but oh my God. Does Doom Wizard's parents know that he or she has gained access to the internet? Because, I mean, I just do not understand how somebody types something like that or you know, puts it on their phone, looks at it, goes, yeah, that's how I want to represent myself in public, and hit send. Still, though, posting extraordinarily stupid and, I mean, just borderline ridiculous shit on YouTube. Not even borderline ridiculous. I mean, it's so far beyond being ridiculous. It doesn't even meet the fucking definition of that word. But yeah, not content with embarrassing himself, and I'm going to assume it's a man, embarrassing himself on the YouTube comment section. It turns out that old Doom Wizard has an electro music project of his very own. It's called Pastor Candy Face Fuck. Yeah, Pastor Candy Face Fuck. It's on YouTube with all of 11 subscribers across 135 songs. And I think it's all songs they've posted. I didn't bother to look at everything. And to give you a taste of the brilliance that Pastor Candy Facefuck produces, here's a little taste of a song called Suck My Heart. So many burning questions about old Doom Wizard's mental state really kind of snap into focus once you hear 27 seconds of that 8-minute marathon that you just had to endure. Utterly atrocious, completely embarrassing, much like that fucking stupid comment. Doom Wizard shouldn't be allowed access to the internet, let alone access to a phone. The only thing the Doom Wizard needs is for his head to be dunked down deep. And that, my friends, is the Swirly of the Week. I'm going to wrap up the show on that note. Thank you very much for those of you who checked out the podcast and stuck around until the very end. I hope you enjoyed episode 302. I'm back next week with the great Sensei Mike Hill, the frontman for Tombs and Scorpion Throne, the host of the Everything Went Black and Necromaniacs podcasts, the final countdown, the ultimate, the conclusion, the finale of the top 30 of 2025. I'm going to be sharing my top 10. Mike is going to be sharing his top 10, and we will reveal the best album according to yours truly of the last 12 months. I want to say thank you very much to Karl Hikara, the Sinister Minister, for joining me for this episode. If you haven't checked out the previous installments of his countdown, make sure you do so on the Sol Nox podcast. And on the topic of best albums, I'm going to be celebrating one of the very best albums, Corinzin by Akrokoko. We're going to listen to a song called Becoming the Adversary. If you don't know this album, for God's sake, for Satan's sake, educate yourself. Also, make sure that you stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.